Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever we may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. We are going to step beyond the veil this evening. Special show for everybody here on YouTube and Facebook. We missed the shows this weekend, but that's why we're here right now, to make up for that to each and every one of you. So we've got some awesome questions, awesome ideas, and some awesome stories to share with everybody as well. And of course, we welcome all kinds of interactions and things like that from the chat room. We will be keeping an eye on the chat room a little bit extra. Oh, that's not supposed to be looping. So we were just on with Billy Ray of Infinite Fringe over at tfrlive.com/Infinite Fringe. And it was a really good show. I feel like I might have dumped a little bit too much on them, though, right off the bat, because he asked me, tell me about the simulation. And it's like, okay, so how do you get into such a vast topic without just blowing somebody's mind completely? Now, Billy's on the level, though, so it was okay. But I was thinking as I was talking, going, I'm probably saying way too much, way too fast here. I'm not speaking to the Beyond the Veil audience that actually gets it. I'm speaking to a completely different audience that may not necessarily be there yet, which made me really appreciate you guys and gals that much more.
Yes.
Because, I can just say what I feel, and you guys and gals are on the level for sure. And I have to, not censor myself, but I have to pace myself. That's a better way to say it when I'm speaking to a different type of audience. So if you want to check that out, you can go to tfrlive.com/Infinite Fringe. Of course, I am joined by the little twin. She's here.
Good evening, everyone.
How's the little twin doing today?
Doing great. I'm ready to do a great show. I missed you guys over the weekend. I really did. And I missed interacting with everyone. So I'm so glad we're able to do this tonight. Yes,
definitely. So we have been talking about virtual reality, and I kind of fell in love with the technology. I love technology. Don't get me wrong. I understand where this is all going. So don't confuse that. But it's just really amazing to see the as above, so below, and it's amazing to really understand this technology. So we got one of those Samsung Gear VRs, and that was the first one, and they had this awesome Black Friday special, and so we got an HTC Vive, which is like the big boy badass virtual reality thing. And you get fully immersed in an experience like that, and it really just paints a picture, for me at least, on how this matrix operates. And there's this one part where you're up in space and you've got the ground right underneath you, but there's still that sense of tension as you're standing in the middle of space with no floor under you or anything like that. I was actually playing Rick and Morty VR, and I played it all the way through, and I played it all the way through a couple of times. And I'm just sitting there just going through everything, and Sheree's watching me, and she's not seeing what I'm seeing. I mean, she can see on the screen, but I was asking her, what's it like to look from the outside? And she goes, oh, you were moving around and just running around and just doing all kinds of stuff. And you get so immersed in the experience that you kind of forget you're wearing a headset and controllers, and you're just there inside of the experience, interacting with Rick and Morty and so on and so forth. And inside of the game, and I don't mean to spoiler alert. So if you're interested in playing it, there's going to be a few spoilers as far as that goes, and we won't stay on the subject for very long. But I do feel that it's necessary to get into. They have this game called Troy. And if you have watched the series, then you know that Troy is this virtual reality simulation that you put on a headset, and then you go into and start living a completely different life, and you make all these different life choices and things like that. So it's kind of like a side game, kind of a mini game within the game itself. But you play as Troy. And at that point, there's no ground inside of you. It's only a green matrix, and the characters appear inside of the green matrix. Have you gotten to the part where you're playing Troy yet?
I have not.
Okay, so
no.
Sheree hasn't gotten to this part yet. but there's no floor under you. And the whole time I'm playing it, I'm like, oh no, I got to go through this part again. And I'm looking down and like, you start to feel like, whoa, I'm going to fall here. I have no footing. I have no ground whatsoever, even though you're right there in the room. So it's amazing with this, with the infancy of the technology, it being so immersive. And the one thing that, like, as I was playing through it, I get to the final boss. You'll never guess what the final boss is. I mean, I think a lot of Beyond the Veil listeners will, but final boss, of course, giant octopus in the sky, giant one-eyed octopus in the sky.
Gotta be the giant octopus.
Right. I'm playing through it, and this thing like appears like, whoa, and I'm looking up at it and going, yeah, of course. Of course. No, of course. This is exactly, of course this is going to be in it. And it was funny because we were playing this little spacewalk game too, where you're like an astronaut and you're outside of space. And it does feel like, you're like holding on to some of the ladders in the game, and you kind of feel like you're going to fly off into space if you let go. And I looked at Sheree afterwards and I said, well, I can confirm it's not flat. It's not flat in the simulation. So that was kind of cool. And I think it was like eye-opening for me, or not eye-opening, but reaffirming. That's a better way to say it. It was reaffirming to me that, sure, people see the globe and that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, it's still inside of the simulation. And that's been the big debate between Flat Earth and globe Earth, et cetera, and people haven't really been able to take that step and say, okay, well, some of them have. I think ODD and a couple of others were doing some shows on simulated thing, and that's great because that's where I saw the flat Earth going, which is why I was behind it so 100%. It's not because I think that we live on a flat plane, but rather I think that it's a simulation. And so understanding that it's a hologram takes you to the simulation, but you got to get to that first step to even question your entire reality. And I see a lot of people, and they're so quick to jump, and defend the globe, for example, and, oh, your flat earthers are so stupid, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think to myself, wow, if they would just think a little bit deeper, it's even bigger than flat Earth. The flat Earth is the catalyst to make you question your reality. So yeah, we've been having a lot of fun with the virtual reality experience, and I played Doom yesterday too, the Doom VR. And you can only move around in a small space because you can set it up. I think 16 by 16 is the biggest space you can set up. But we don't have a room that big. Our room is about 10 by 12. But still, even 10 by 12, there's not very much room to move around. And so they've created like teleportation and stuff like that to move the characters around within the VR realm. But some of it was, it was pretty intense moving around and, shooting, and you like really get into it. Like, you like go straight up like Neo sometimes. You've got two guns, and there's this part in Rick and Morty too where you're fighting the federal agents, the little alien federal agents, and I'm just like, bah, 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 bah. You really get into it. And the way the controllers feel too, they really feel like guns when you're actually shooting things, and you can really like feel it. And then the coolest part too is you can actually see the controllers in front of you. So as you're moving around, even if you put the controllers down, you can still see them. And like, I was picking it up and like tossing it around with the goggles on because I was able to see it within the virtual reality realm. And it feels like they're your hands. Like you really get immersed in this experience. So it was pretty incredible. And it's still funny how the last final boss is a giant octopus in the sky with one eye, exactly what we've been talking about. It's like you just can't. And then the whole Troy game too. You go inside of the simulation to play a simulation, and you live a simulated life, and you make these different choices. Like you can choose to play football as a kid, or you can choose to do drugs and things like that, and the outcome is based on your choices throughout this simulation, which is the Troy game within the simulation itself, which is the Rick and Morty game, which is within the simulation itself, which is this reality here. So it's like simulation and a simulation and a simulation, and it's all right here at our fingertips now, which is why I'm just like, I'm amazed, I'm excited, I love immersing myself in this technology, but at the same time I'm apprehensive, and I totally understand where this is heading. So we will be 50 years from now inside of pods within the simulation. It's plain as day now, especially if they keep developing AI. Virtual reality in the way that they're developing it, especially with AI behind it. So that was one of the topics of the show with Billy, was Sophia and this matrix and this machine. And everybody has the same question, like, why was this machine created? What's the purpose of us being in this machine, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, very, very interesting. What was your experience in the VR realm like?
Well, I haven't had as much time or, really the energy to really invest a whole lot of time into looking at the Vive. And the reason why is because it's so immersive. I forget that I just had surgery on my shoulder 6 weeks ago, and that I probably shouldn't be, using it to shoot aliens for more than a couple of seconds at a time. And then I end up hurting for the rest of the night. So I want to talk a little bit about the Samsung VR, though. And it's just one that you hook up your phone to. And I have used that almost every night for the past several weeks, just going to different places around the world. And I watch these 360-degree videos where I really feel like I'm there on a beach in Singapore, or I'm in the rainforest in South America, or I'm meditating in China, in a Chinese forest or something like that. It's really interesting to be able to integrate some of this stuff and then also understand that you're in a simulation inside of another simulation. That's freeing to me, just to be aware of that. And somebody asked in the YouTube chat just now, is this just video gaming? I was hoping for another DMT trip, but live. The way this connects to DMT is that DMT has always shown me, at least, like it's the wiring under the board. Even Terrence McKenna said something along the same lines. When you do psychedelics, you're looking at the wiring under the board, and if you can see that wiring, then you can actually change things about your reality and about the reality that surrounds you. And what Chris said on Billy's show earlier was very interesting. He said when you do DMT, you actually see you see, and what you see in hyperspace is actually the what makes up the matrix, like what the wiring under the board of it, so to speak.
Right.
And so
it's all connected.
It's all connected to everything else. Yeah.
We can tell you about our DMT experiences and what it's like to be immersed into hyperspace and have a total disassociation of a sense of self from the actual physical body. But now we have a technology where we can say, okay, check this out. You want to feel immersion and you're not taking DMT? Here, just put on one of these headsets here for just a few moments, and you at least get it's not the same by any means, but it's still a immersive and disconnective type of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Not nearly as intense. I mean, it's like, I don't even know what to liken it to, but you've got like the ultra level class, which is the DMT, and then you have the virtual reality realm. But all in all, it kind of works together. So it's amazing now we have another tool to show people, hey, this is what it feels like to be outside of yourself.
Somebody mentioned strange dot machines, that I've had a few lucid dreams, really would like to have more. With that VR thing, especially if I do like meditation on it, and I allow myself to immerse myself in a reality for even 10 minutes, I've noticed that I can direct my dreams a lot easier, which, according to David J. Brown, that's the highlight of a lucid dream, is the fact that you can direct it and you can decide, oh, okay, well, I'm going to take this path over here, and oh, I don't like the way that branch is about to fall on me, so I'm going to magically make it go the other way. All of these things are possible when you're already familiar with being immersed in a false reality and being able to manipulate that reality. Then it helps whenever you're in the dream world as well.
Right. Dream world, DMT realm, virtual reality world. See, like I said, it's all connected, because now we're starting to understand the different states of consciousness within the matrix. And most people understand technology far better than anything else. I mean, Sheree and I can speak telepathically to one another, and I can have telepathic interactions with other people, but other people may not necessarily know that we're having telepathic interactions. I'll give you an example. Today we went out to eat, and I was thinking to myself, I kind of want the country fried steak, but they make this homemade fried chicken that's just freaking amazing. And so I was thinking in my mind as I was ordering, and we know the guy, the owner of the place, and he's really cool. He's totally on the level.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, I think I want chicken fried steak, and then I said fried chicken. I said, yeah, go ahead and give me the fried chicken. And they wind up cooking the chicken fried steak instead. I didn't say chicken fried steak instead. I didn't say chicken fried steak at all. And they wound up cooking the fried chicken. And I think what happened was he was picking up on my frequency there, and we were kind of speaking telepathically. So we went back and put in the order as chicken fried steak. And then
as fried chicken, you mean?
No, he put in the order as chicken fried steak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then put in the fried chicken later because he wrote down fried chicken. So he brought us the chicken fried steak and the fried chicken at the same time and said, well, we accidentally cooked this, so you might as well take it. But here's your fried chicken too. And I was like, it's funny because I was actually thinking that's what I wanted. That's what I preferred, but I ordered that instead. So, and he's like, here you go. You get the best of both worlds. But it's the point that I'm getting at is he was picking up on the brainwaves there. But you can't really tell somebody like, hey, that was a telepathic communication that we just had. But you sit down and you immerse yourself in this virtual reality realm. I went and took the goggles, the Samsung goggles, to a friend of mine, old biker guy, and he's like, "Holy crap!" and he understood exactly the immersion. He's like, "Wow, you're almost like, oh, it feels like you're there. It feels like you're out of body," and I'm like, wow, we can give somebody an out-of-body experience right now without them having the apprehensive feelings of DMT or anything like that. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, definitely. Seth Maniachi said, Chris and Sheree, have you heard about the telepathic cure discovered for cancer?
I have not.
But that
doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me that it would work. I think just changing your energy frequency can essentially knock out anything at this point. I've seen people go from having stage 4 lung cancer to being completely cancer free a year and a half later, with, just mainly just thinking differently, because she had probably a 20% chance of living. And before she was diagnosed with this cancer, she had a lot of negative thought patterns about life and about her family, et cetera, et cetera. And then she changed those, and then suddenly the cancer just started to die off.
Yeah.
And so I think it has a lot to do with it.
She was putting out a lot of negative intention towards people as well.
Yeah.
And we told her, hey, stop with the negative intentions, stop with the negative thinking, and change the frequency. And it was amazing to see it actually work. And somebody that is totally not on the level at all.
Right.
And very, very trapped in the, mainstream frequency. But to see it, manifest in their reality based on just this kind of thought. So
I don't even want, I would venture to guess that for people that are on the level, being able to cure something like cancer would be it'd be a breeze. So to speak, especially if you understood that we're in a simulation and that it's all zeros and ones anyway.
The other day, my liver or kidney or something just started killing me. And I laid on the couch and it was just like tied up in a knot or something. I was like, oh, and Sheree's like, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, yes. I was like, I control my kidney. My kidney doesn't control me. And it took like about 10 seconds. And I just focused on, nope, I control you, you don't control me, and that was that. 10 seconds later, I was perfectly fine again. I don't know if you can attribute that to something similar to this, but I feel that through those type of thought patterns, then we're able to really deal with a lot of the ailments. I got sick about a week ago, and my nose just started gushing blood, and I started visualizing, oh, okay, I understand what's going on here. I somehow got some kind of bacteria. I think a gnat flew up my nose, and this happens almost every year. These freaking gnats, they just come and they just fly right up your nose. And I remember one went up my nose, and I was like hawking it out, and it came out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so disgusting.
That is really gross.
It's horrible. But so this gnat flew up there. And so my nose started gushing blood a couple days later, and I'm like, oh, okay, I understand what's going on. It's bacteria. It's inside. I was picturing the bacteria. It's the flushing part. And I'm like, it's okay. And Sheree's like, oh my God, your nose is bleeding. I'm like, sweetie, it's okay. Let me just get all this out, all this bacteria out. And I pictured it removing. And I was under the weather for about a day and a half. But during the whole time, I just kept telling myself, it's okay. This is flushing and it's fine. And boom, went back to normal very, very quickly. So I don't know if you can attribute that to positive thought or not, but I think that it was. If I would have done the opposite, oh my God, I'm so sick, I've got to lay down, I've got to do this, or oh, my nose is bleeding, it could be anything, and then I start getting on WebMD and I start diagnosing myself. Oh shit, it's SARS, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of some ridiculous diagnoses here, which I can't think of. I don't know what all the diagnoses are out there. But the point is, though, if I would have started self-diagnosing myself, I probably would still be sick and go, oh my God, my nose was bleeding. Like, my nose bleeds every once in a while because of the dry weather, but this was gushing. But I knew instinctively when it started gushing, oh, there's something that needs to come out. And it sure enough, it came out. So goes to show, just think like that when your body computer starts to act funny, and see what happens.
Yeah, and I've noticed that usually true illness, like there are some things that I think our bodies are an extension of the AI, because these things that do actually go wrong, they either happen with the mind, and the mind creates these things, like Chris was saying, or there's actually an actual shift in some kind of biochemical process that's induced by the AI somehow that causes an illness of some sort. And when this happens, it happens so fast that you're not able to look on WebMD or obsess about what it could be, or you're so sick that you're not able to do those things. That's when I would worry, and not worry, but that's when it needs to actually be addressed. I've noticed when you have the wherewithal to actually look it up on WebMD and obsess about it, then it's probably nothing. And it's probably something that you're creating in your mind. And if you keep doing that, then it's actually going to create something that you can. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you create it in your mind over the course of several days or several weeks, and then it seems like it's manifesting when really there was nothing wrong to begin with.
Well, and bringing it right back to the virtual reality thing here for just a moment. When I first stepped into a space with no floor under me in the virtual reality realm, like I said, my body was naturally going, oh, whoa, wait a minute. And I could start feeling those feelings of unease. There's this one that we were playing, and you're walking on this bridge, and this bridge is like right next to this huge cliff, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm thinking, should I close my eyes? Because I'm not really liking this. And it's funny because I used to skydive, I used to bungee jump, I used to do all that until I actually had something to lose, and now I have a lot to lose, so I don't do any stupid stuff like that. But before, I really didn't care, so I would jump out of an airplane in a heartbeat. But I was getting that sense. But then being able to tell the body, wait a minute, this is just a simulation here. Okay, it may look like there's no floor under me. This is just a simulation. I've got carpet under me. I've got a good steady floor under me. Just go through it and just enjoy the experience. So applying that and taming the body like that, and also taming the body here in this physical realm, knowing none of this is real, et cetera, it all works like as above, so below. It's incredible.
Yes, it does. I think somebody asked a good question. Does the AI use our smartphones to keep the simulation going? I feel that our phones are getting more and more overpowered for no logical reason. My phone has more power than my old PC and my laptop combined. Something is definitely using that. it does make me wonder if the reason why our technology is allowed, I guess, by the AI to become so powerful is because maybe it can use electronics and computer resourcing power of the electronics on Earth in lieu of the NPCs, and that's why it's killing off the NPCs to save power, and instead using the
I don't
power
know.
from
I don't know if I
electronics.
resonate with that. And let
No?
me tell you why. Because we're talking about the above AI matrix. And so, I mean, the above AI that's outside of the matrix. So it's creating the matrix itself. So I don't see how it could create a power source within itself. Like it would have to get an external power source to apply here for manifestation. So it's manifesting this type of technology here in this realm, but I don't think they can feed off of it in the traditional sense. But what I will say is that I think that the smartphones and the cameras and everything else are going to the mainframe for the below artificial intelligence, which is Sophia. And Sophia is just the face of all this, but we'll call it Sophia for lack of a better term. But all of this information is being fed into the artificial intelligence that's created on the physical plane. So yes, you are right in my opinion, and I mean you could be totally right, and I could be totally wrong. So just a caveat there. But I think you are right, but not that the AI, as in the one that controls the matrix, is feeding off this technology, but rather the lower, this plane AI is feeding on the technology.
What if the smartphones, all these smart devices, I mean, they even have like appliances for your kitchen now that are smart appliances, entire smart houses, all of that. What if that is another way for the AI to feed off of our energy, the energy of organic consciousness? And the more people that sign on to it, the more energy it leaches from them.
That's pretty interesting. I don't know, because like it's a double-edged sword, because I can't see how we could accomplish this without technology. And this is why I love and hate technology at the same time. I love technology because of what it's capable of helping us do. I hate technology because where it's going to wind up, without a doubt. Without technology, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. A lot of people are listening to us on watching us on a smartphone right now. A lot of people download and listen to the audio archives on a smartphone. There's people that run whole websites on a smartphone. It's incredible. Like, I don't know how they do it, but they just, just go over and over and over again. Everybody has a camera in their phone that's feeding the AI. But at the same time, the camera is also picking up police brutality. It's picking up wrongs. It's picking up corporate there's a better word besides misbehavior, but we'll call it corruption. Yeah, corporate corruption. It's picking up all this different stuff, and we're using that footage, putting it on YouTube, and now people are becoming aware of how government works, how corporations work, how police work, et cetera, et cetera. And it's starting to change things, and it's waking people up, at least on some levels. So it's really like a balanced force here that we're working with, but it will get out of balance. But that's why it's hard for me to be one of those voices that say technology's bad, turn off your smartphones, et cetera, because it's magic, just like anything else. Any type of magic is all based on the intent of the magician. Now, the question is, are you the magician in this, or are you the one who the spell is being cast upon? So for me personally, I can step into the virtual reality realm, and I can understand what I'm stepping into, and I can utilize this technology for my benefit, and I can utilize this technology for my awakening, because I have the understanding and the intention behind utilizing the technology. But you get somebody that has absolutely no idea what they're doing or aware of any of this at all, and they're very, very susceptible to the magician's intent who gave them the technology to begin with. So, think about it like that. And that's why it's even so much more important to be aware of who we are as the raw consciousness element, and how to navigate through this matrix, while utilizing whatever tools we can to the best of our ability, and for the benefit, and the benefit of raw consciousness and waking up our raw consciousness element. So I'll give you an example. Bitcoin. Okay, I was a conspiracy theorist at the time, and I got offered Bitcoin for $4 a piece. And instead of buying some, because what would it have been? A couple $100 maybe, and I would have gotten 50 Bitcoin or whatever.
Wow.
And now 50 Bitcoin would be worth $500,000. But it was my conspiracy theorist programming that prevented me from doing that, because I said, this is the mark of the beast. This is the digital currency that we've all been told about. This is, you won't be able to buy and sell without the digital currency, et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't want to feed that system. Had I had the balanced mind like I do now and fully understood who I was, I would have bought those Bitcoin. I would have $500,000+ to work with now. And I would be able to use those resources in order to further the message of waking up raw consciousness. So I would have taken the energy and I would have turned it around and used it, instead of completely being devoid of it, which is, the situation that we're in now. We have a little bit in Bitcoin, but we got in very, 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 very late, because of the conspiracy theory mindset. And I hear shows right now saying, oh, the Bitcoin is the evil and it's this and that and blah, 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 blah. And I still feel that there is going to be a bursting of this bubble at some point. It seems logical, especially when people are dumping so much money into it. That's the way the powers that be work. But up until this point, it was one of the stupidest decisions that I ever made in my life. So learning from that experience and sharing that experience, don't veer away from certain things just because of some kind of conspiracy theorist program, or et cetera, et cetera. Harness the energies, use the energies for yourself. You are the creator. You created these energies to begin with. At the end of the day, we, raw consciousness, created all of this. So let's take back control, instead of going, oh no, it's so evil, let's avoid this and avoid that, et cetera, et cetera. No, we approach it as creators.
Definitely. And this is a very good question. Katarina Love said, could you please address illnesses within our children, such as leukemia, or I think SMA would have to do with cancer, another type of cancer maybe, or something like that. I'm not up to date lately on all of the medical jargon, but I want to address this from the perspective of somebody who's been through health stuff in the past, and I've noticed that it's a challenge directly from the AI, and it knows that if you are willing to follow programming when it comes to addressing whatever this is, then it's got you in its grasp. It's got you working for it. It's got you giving your energy to it. If you refuse to follow programming and instead use your intelligence and organic consciousness to find out ways to make yourself healthier, so that you don't have to kind of be beholden to anyone, especially NPCs and white coats, to help you with this, then it's you fighting against the AI. These things are going to happen. It's not like they're not going to happen. I have noticed, though, that the people who obsess the least about these things happening tend to have it happen to them the least. Similar to how the only people I've ever seen affected by demonic possession are Catholics or people who are extremely religious. The same thing goes for people who invest their families heavily in the medical industrial complex from a very early age. They tend to have these diagnoses of leukemia or, terrible lymphoma or terrible this or terrible that. And they do tend to have the kids with the worst autism and things like that. It's the ones that really pay the medical industrial complex no attention whatsoever, and who who look upon them with a certain amount of distrust, and keep an open mind about natural things like from the get-go, are the ones with the least amount of problems. I really think it has a lot to do with the way that whether you're willing to be programmed or not.
Well said. AI Captain said, if you were millionaires, would you still be here with us? Hell yes, we would. See, the Beyond the Veil, it started out as Truth Frequency. It turned into Beyond the Veil because Truth Frequency kind of took a life of its own and became a station. So we kind of gave that name to everybody because there were so many people using that name. And plus Beyond the Veil, I think, is a little deeper than Truth Frequency. Truth Frequency was fine for the beginning stages of it, but now we're Beyond the Veil. Yes, absolutely. This is what we do here is our heart, soul, and consciousness all put together and brought out. There's nothing that can stop us from doing this. We would probably do it more often because we wouldn't have to worry about money if we were millionaires. So that's, we wouldn't have other obligations that we would have to do.
Right.
And we would, go so far as to bring you live broadcasts from Egypt and from places like that. So no, this is something pumping out of our essence. And regardless of anything that happens, there's nothing more important than this. There's obligations that take precedence sometimes only out of necessity, but there's nothing more important than this, though.
There is nothing more important than this. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think somebody else had a good question here.
I couldn't imagine my life without this.
Yeah, me either.
It's been such a part, and we've talked about, like there was a time I was working for a company full time, and I'm the program director at the station, and I was doing BTV and a couple of other obligations as well. And the company that I was working for was really pushing me to the limit. I mean, I was working like 16 hours a day sometimes. Sometimes I would have to be up in the middle of the night because there'd be something wrong with the server or something going on with this or that, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just like wearing so much on me that I was like, okay, look, I can't continue to do everything because I'm not doing anything right because I'm so spread out so thin. And we talked about it, but like saying, okay, well, let's put the show on the back burner. We've got, so many great hosts over at tfrlive.com that, TFR Truth Frequency has become its own entity. And maybe now we can just kind of take a step back and just kind of focus on us. But there would be this huge void in my soul if I did that. There's no way I could do that. So we're in it for the long haul.
Okay, Morpheus Maximus said, how do you get around getting your kids vaccinated these days? The religious exemption still exists, and there still do exist pediatricians out there who would be willing to sign off on medical waivers as well. If you're living in an archaic kind of not archaic but a police state kind of environment where the religious exemptions no longer apply, like California, then you still can get a medical exemption from your doctor, and all the doctor has to do basically is say that, oh well, this child developed a fever after their vaccinations last time, so no vaccinations for this kid.
Right.
There are ways around it.
I did that with my dogs. Like they wouldn't take them at the groomers without vaccines. And I went to one doctor or one vet, and I said, look, we got them vaccinated, and we were living in a different state at the time. We got them vaccinated in the state. They got really, really sick afterwards, and they're allergic to these vaccines. So he wrote me an exemption, and I used that exemption for the rest of their lives. And it was total bullshit. I just completely made up the story. But I didn't want to stick poison inside of my dogs. So every groomer that I would go to, nope, vaccine exemption here.
I will.
So I'm wondering if we can use that same type of method for children as well. I mean, like, especially if a child gets sick after having a vaccine, then you can say it was an allergic reaction to that vaccine and the child is just allergic to vaccines and that's it, period.
If your pediatrician is giving you any crap whatsoever about getting your child vaccinated and won't sign the waiver for you, then find another pediatrician. There are pediatricians out there who will work with you that are more holistic doctors. You might even have to find a family practitioner who's a holistic medicine MD.
All of you with kids out there, I salute you.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine raising a kid in this day and age. This is a fucked up world that we're living in, and yeah, it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I was reading about a woman that got arrested for not vaccinating her kids, and had her children taken away. And there was apparently, the story was a little bit different though. She had promised her ex-husband, who had joint custody, that she would vaccinate, and she agreed to it. And then the court ordered her to vaccinate, and she agreed to the court order as well. And then she broke the court order and wound up getting thrown in jail. Now, the headline just read, "Woman gets jailed for refusing to vaccinate." But what actually happened was that she went against the court order, which she agreed to.
She agreed to
and her husband wound up getting custody of the kids and wound up sticking a bunch of poison in them. So she really didn't go to jail for refusing to vaccinate. She went to jail for refusing to follow a court order, which she agreed to. So, remember that lesson too. Don't agree to shit.
Don't agree to anything.
Yeah. Once you agree to something in the court, you can't take it back.
Right.
Which is why don't even play around with the courts. I mean, it's a fucked up world. I mean, it's just fucked up all the way around. Like, you have a court system that decides custody between parents. Like, to me, like, the parent's right is, it's their freaking child. Like, who the hell do these people think they are to step in the middle of something like that? And then you have these vindictive people and vindictive parents that try to use the children as pawns and divorces and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible system all up and down the line. Like, what happened to respect for one another? What happened to, just the simple fact that, I don't know. I've never had kids, so I don't know what it's like. But
I will say that
imagining it is freaking horrific.
From all of the horror stories I've heard and everything I've seen in this life, I will tell you the easiest way you can tell an NPC from organic consciousness is the way they react during custody battles. An NPC will see the child as an object to be owned, and something to be controlled. Something to be used as a pawn against the other parent. It will not for 1 second take emotions into account, and will be completely and utterly heartless. That's an NPC. Only an NPC could do that, I think. Anybody with a heart, anybody with that organic consciousness is going to think, 100 steps ahead and think, okay, what is best for this child, and what is going to work out the best for their little consciousness. What's going to be best for them. That's an organic consciousness. That's a true parent. And so I feel you, everyone out there who's gone through that or who's going through that. That is a very difficult situation. And
a little different than Beyond the Veil stuff, but it's stuff that's very real, though.
Yeah, it is.
People are dealing with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and somebody pointed out,
consider this to the people that don't have kids, though. Consider this: children, in my opinion, they're very karmically binding to this matrix.
They are,
and rightfully so. I would be the exact same way if I had kids. One of the things I told myself is I'm not going to have kids until I'm ready to give up my life and dedicated to that being, because that's what a parent does, is their life stops and it's all about the child at that point. But then as I started to progress even further, I realized, children are very, very karmically binding. And, part of me thinks to myself, there's kind of a sense of loss a little bit for, I'm not a father. I never will be a father because of the path that I chose to walk in this particular life. And I've got a little niece, and she's just freaking amazing. Like, she's the coolest little thing. And I meet these kids sometimes, and they just have these little lights and these little consciousness that just spark up. And I mean, it's the most beautiful, amazing little thing to behold. And I think to myself, wow, I couldn't imagine, having, a little consciousness like that I could help guide, and I could raise, and I could teach the things that I know to, and help them to achieve higher levels, et cetera, et cetera. And there's that sense of, well, that's not for this particular life. and there's a sorrow. But then the other hand is, okay, well, there's a mission to complete, and that's the only thing that matters is this mission. And that's for a different life. So I don't know if anybody else out there is feeling like that too, but I'm meeting a lot of people who are in their late 30s, early 40s, some in their 50s. Children is just not on the agenda for them in this particular life. And if that's the way you're feeling, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever.
Right. It's
a sacrifice. It's a child sacrifice. Like I made a child sacrifice. I'm not going to have children in this life so I can complete this mission. So
different wording might be good.
Well, the reason I use that wording is to kind of illustrate the energy that's being sacrificed from myself and given to this mission.
Right, exactly. We've talked about women's menstrual cycles are the same way. Whenever you have a period, it is kind of it's the recognition of a sacrifice, because that's a whole nother month that you wasted an egg essentially, and you could have gotten pregnant. You could have had a baby in 10 months. You could have, done that, but instead you have sacrificed that in lieu of growing other things in your life. And that's why the moon time is always it's so sacred in ancient times. It's not so sacred nowadays, but it was sacred back then because it was the recognition of the opportunity lost to the woman for another month. And then when you turn about 35, 36, 37, then your ability to create children goes away. And that doesn't ever come back. And that means that that part of your life is over, and you transfer from the mother aspect to the crone aspect. And that's a really hard time for a lot of women, because a lot of women feel uncomfortable that they sacrificed all those years and that they could have had children. But what we're saying is, if you're not meant to do it because you have something important to complete in this life, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And there is something to be said about the power of the crone, the old woman, the fairy godmother, the older female has an insane amount of power. And that's why, according to ancient Celtic lore, I think it was, the reason why the period is taken away is so that the woman can conserve all that power and wield it as she sees fit, because she's matured and now she knows how to wield it properly. And that's why the old grandmother spirit is always so revered and so wise, because she has all that power that she's been able to retain. Interesting. I don't know why I went into that, but
yeah, I don't like the frequency of this topic.
I don't either. Okay,
so let's move on to something else.
The simulation theory concept is from Brandy. This simulation theory concept would be so easy to believe, especially the part about the NPCs. Would that equate with narcissists, psychopaths, etc., just living day to day, dealing with these types of people? If they can't control you, they want to destroy you, they like to invade your space, they have no boundaries. They look at you like, why are you questioning things? Crazy, crazy world.
What's the listener's name?
Brandy.
Brandy. Okay, because there was somebody asking about that in the chat.
I will say,
a couple of days ago,
people you surround yourself like attracts like. So be very careful when you're looking at your environment and you see negative. You have to ask yourself, how much is that being reflected from yourself?
Yeah.
I know that's hard, but...
I don't mean to offend anybody out there, but I've never really cared before, so I might as well not care now. But I usually find that people who are all about narcissists, et cetera, are usually the narcissists themselves.
Yeah.
And you may not realize it, but you got to evaluate yourself and ask yourself, is that really, what's going on here? Because I don't deal with narcissists in my life.
Right.
I mean, people are people, and that's it. And I have control over my sphere. If I am around somebody who's a psychic vampire, for example, then I remove myself from that sphere and I go into a different sphere, or I remove them from my sphere, and I'm like, no, that's it. Like, I don't understand how you can be in a situation with so much total control that you're, I see these people kind of like whaling fish out of water, and they're like flapping around, and they're like, oh, there's narcissists everywhere. And then there's people that do like YouTube channels that are like totally dedicated to the topic. And it's like, why are you attracting so many narcissists into your life? Like, what's going on here? There's something deeper going on here. So that's one of the reasons why we don't get into that type of topic, because, we're talking to the creators here.
But
we're not talking to, the floundering fish that are out there, like completely lost grip of their own freaking consciousness and all of that. So, take control, man up. And, if you're a female, still man up.
Right.
Man up and take control of your freaking reality. That's what it comes down to. Simple as that.
Right. And that was probably the third or fourth person actually who had kind of asked something along those same lines.
Resonance Creative said, my dad is a narcissist. And you know what? I resonate with that 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes we leave ourselves. This is great. I'm glad you brought that up, because it sparked this idea. Sometimes we leave ourselves in these situations out of a feeling of obligation.
Yes.
I distance myself a little bit from my father. I say exact same thing. My father used to beat the shit out of me. He used to choke me until I'd freaking pass out. And I thought it was normal. And like, I'd go over to my friends' houses and their fathers wouldn't do that. And their fathers actually like interacted with them and like took them out and did stuff like that. And I was like, wow, you mean your father doesn't beat the shit out of you? It's freaking amazing.
Wow.
And
that's a new concept.
it's pretty screwed up to grow up like that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But my father decided at my mother's funeral, in front of my mother's open casket, that he was going to tell me exactly how he feels about me and what a piece of shit I am, et cetera, et cetera. And it was at that point he disappeared from my sphere completely. I mean, it was at the wake. We still had the funeral the next day. At the funeral the next day, he disappeared. He wasn't even there, and I haven't spoken to him since. I tried to reach out to him a couple of years ago on Christmas, just because I didn't want him to die and then me, have these regrets like, oh, but I tried, and I talked to him for like 30 seconds, and that's it. And, that was that. But what I realized is that, growing up through life, he was always negative about everything. He was always like, oh, you can't do this. I mean, he told my sister one time, she was getting her pilot's license, and he told me, oh, he told her, you're not smart enough to fly a plane. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I mean, it just like, my jaw was on the floor. But it was the same type of deal. My entire life. No matter what I did, it was always bullshit. The radio show was bullshit. Then we got syndicated on AM and FM, and it was still bullshit. It wasn't a real radio show. I started a carpet cleaning and flood restoration business way, way, way back, and that's not a real job because you're not actually working for somebody. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm making a whole shitload more money than what I would working for somebody else. It was always never up to his standards. He told me one time that I should live in poverty and work 3 jobs and go to college and get and get a different college degree than what I got. I got a degree in audio engineering. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's freaking stupid. What the hell kind of thing? But it's that psychic vampirism that was always around. And so I distanced myself. I moved to another city and I talked to him every once in a while. And then finally I cut off communication completely. But, we sometimes stay in these situations out of a sense of obligation. But then I came to the realization, even if it's family, it's okay to just cut ties completely and totally, and you start to create boundaries, and if people aren't respecting those boundaries, then you cut them off and you just say, nope, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to play this game anymore. And then later maybe they'll come back in and they'll start respecting your boundaries again. And once they do that, then it's okay to allow them back into your sphere, because now they're respecting the boundaries that you set up. But yeah, no, I totally resonate with that. So
definitely. And Noodle asked, what about Flower of Life sacred geometry? Is that the real organic consciousness / matrix?
Wait, real organic consciousness / matrix?
Yeah, they said
no. The two are
completely
totally separate from one another.
Yeah, there's the matrix or the organic
Right.
consciousness.
The sacred geometry, to my understanding, is the code. It's the way that the matrix is built up. So you have practical geometry, which is what we see in the physical, and this is made up of sacred geometry in the microscopic and even going into the ethereal planes, et cetera, et cetera. But sacred geometry, to the way that I understand it, is the actual code. It's like that's the way the code manifests itself in a visual representation. And you can even look at Professor Gates' work, where he found the computer code in the fabric of space-time and string theory, et cetera, and he put it into a machine and it spat out the adinkras. The adinkras are all made up of sacred geometry. And you go on the deeper and deeper level, and you start to understand how the computer code is made up and how that sacred geometry makes up the practical geometry, and then you get a better understanding of the matrix. But no, the two are not connected at all, except for the fact that organic consciousness is trapped inside of the machine. But there are spiritual paths that tell you, oh, it's all about sacred geometry, and it's all about this, and it's all about that. And these are the paths that pull you into the matrix while making you believe that you're having these spiritual awakenings and spiritual awarenesses. And as I've said, they may be stepping stones, and that's perfectly fine. But if that's the end all be all, and I think, you said that somebody asked a question about Buddhism too. I don't know if you have that,
Yes.
that one handy.
Yes.
But he and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said that I have Buddhism wrong, and that Buddhism is about breaking out of the matrix, but it's doing so after you've lived a million lifetimes. And my premise was that even Buddhism is flawed, because Buddhism tells you that it's all about reincarnation, you're going to be reincarnated, et cetera, et cetera. And he went so far as to say, well, people don't actually practice escaping the matrix because they're focused on the next life, and et cetera, et cetera. But as you can see, it's a never-ending wheel that continues to go on and on and on and on and on. So that's flawed in and of itself. But when you look at any kind of spirituality, and if this is your path, I mean, some people don't want to break out of this. Some people like it. Some people have Stockholm syndrome when it comes to this, and they want to feel like, oh, I'm so little, and there's this big God out there, and it's not me, and oh, I'm so blessed to be in the presence of this divine freaking AI monster. And that's perfectly fine if that's your path. I am knocking it a little bit, but it's whatever. Again, it's hard to speak without offending people. But if you want to get out of this machine, if you want what's real, if you want to know the real world again, if you want to know your real self, then your spiritual practices have to be conducive to that. You can't have spiritual practices that tell you that you're part of this matrix while at the same time wanting to escape, because it's not going to happen. It's not going to work.
Right. He asked, he was talking about how the goal of Buddhism is to become enlightened and to escape the wheel of reincarnation, samsara. And that's all well and good. But if you don't understand that it's a simulation, and that this isn't really real, and that there's something else besides having another life, or even going to another plane of existence, then aren't you just kind of going to another level of the matrix? If you are able to break out of the wheel, but you don't realize that you're in an artificial reality.
Well, this is something that a lot of people have a hard time with, is the idea that the other realms, the higher dimensions, the ninth dimension, heaven, hell, et cetera, all exist within the matrix itself. And I speak to a lot of really, really, really enlightened people that still can't make that connection. And it was one that was difficult for me to make too, but just, it's like this. It's very, very clear if you can wrap your head around it, but it's so simple. The matrix is this box, this bubble right here. The real world is outside of the bubble. Every sense of spirituality as we know it in this matrix exists within inside of that bubble. And every dimension up and down the line is inside of that bubble, inside of the machine. So where are you going? Are you ascending to a higher dimension? Okay, you're still inside of the machine. There's only one way out, and out. You have to go in to go out. So that's the only way to the real world. People are starting to get it though. BS belief systems are starting to break down for them. Even the most spiritually enlightened and aware out there are starting to come to these realizations like, oh, it's all inside the machine. But just remember that it's all inside the machine, and outside is the real world. If your goal is to get outside, you have to let go of everything that's inside of the machine.
Definitely. You guys should talk about CERN. What's your opinion on it?
Oh, CERN.
So
I was
let's get
looking at a
into
picture.
CERN.
Yeah, I was looking at a picture that that popped up on my Facebook timeline, and I was actually playing Rick and Morty. I came across the octopus with the eye, which had me thinking about the octopus in the eye. And then this picture of CERN popped up that I'm going to try to find here. Here it is right here. So let me put this up on the screen here so everybody can see it. There we go. So I was looking at this picture of CERN and I was like, holy crap, that's an octopus. And that was the first thought that came to my mind before I even counted the tentacles that surrounded. So I started counting the tentacles and I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It has 8 freaking tentacles on top of that. And this looks like the bottom of an octopus. Now, when I saw this thing during the eclipse, I was looking outside of it. So I was looking at it from the top down and it looked very much like a squid or octopus, but it was more metallic. You could see the eye with tentacles kind of coming out like that. But this would be a representation of looking from the octopus from the bottom up. And I thought to myself, wow, this is what it must look like when the souls are taken back into the octopus recycling facility or whatever. I mean, this is like the octopus coming down and eating you with the tentacles out. So I thought that that was really, really, really interesting. So given that revelation, I started thinking to myself, I better pay a little more attention to what's going on at CERN. Because at first I kind of dismissed it because I thought, well, if the technology is out there and it's in the public view, then it's probably misdirection and it's probably benign because they're not going to put their nefarious agenda out there in front of everybody. But then again, you do have the concept of hidden in plain sight. So I'm not dismissing that whatsoever. I'm just telling you what my thought pattern was in kind of dismissing the whole CERN thing. And I thought, okay, CERN's opening up portals and things like that. It's probably not the case. There's probably a facility somewhere underground that's actually doing that. And CERN is kind of the misdirection in that regard. Oh, Borpheus tipped $5. Borpheus, you rock, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Anyways, back to CERN.
We love you too.
So CERN is opening up all these different dimensions and things like that, and it very well could be. So I need to pay a little more attention to CERN. But I'll tell you one thought that I have about CERN is that a lot of people out there are very concerned about it, but they're concerned about it with the wrong reason. And some people, they make this really nice meal and just present it on the table just so well, and it's so beautiful and, you know, appetizing and all this, and then they come in and they just shit all over it. And I'm like, oh, why are you doing that? And of course that's metaphoric, but I was watching this film, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to sound like I'm bashing the film itself or the filmmaker or anything like that, but he was talking about the AI, he was talking about the clones, he was talking about everything. And then he comes in and he says, CERN is Satan and the AI is Satan and it's trying to keep you away from Jesus Christ. And I'm like, dude, how can you come over here and come up with all of this great information and then just shit all over it? Okay, the AI is Satan and it's trying to keep you away from Jesus Christ. What the fuck kind of shit is that? So be careful, in my opinion. Be wary of that, and you know, listen to everything and pick out whatever resonates, because there's a lot of people that have the wrong conclusions but have really, really good information as far as getting to those wrong conclusions. But I don't think it's opening up portals to fucking hell. I don't think it's opening up portals and letting demons in and things like that. I think it may be playing around with the dimensions a little bit, but as above, so below. And I think that CERN has a little bit more to it than just opening up dimensions and things like that. I mean, this very well could be the mainframe of the AI. I don't know the inner workings of CERN or not, but I know that the whole idea of keeping you away from Jesus and all this is just complete, it's laughable. It's infantile. It's like an infantile way of thinking about this reality. But, whatever floats your boat, it is what it is. What do you think?
I think that it reminds me a little bit of Terence McKenna's idea about time wave zero. If you look at this matrix as multidimensional and as being able to have a very large amount of timelines that all have their own variations, then it is possible that what Terence McKenna saw, which was another timeline that was similar to ours, except in this timeline, Jesus never existed, or he was never born, or he was never resurrected. And as a result, Christianity never became a thing. And he watched this whole other timeline transpire. And when they got to the year 2000 or something like that, or 1960 or 1920, the turn of the 20th century, I think is what he said. Then these people in this other timeline started to realize that we existed. And so they started trying to cross over into our dimension. Now, what if you looked at this from the perspective of were both timelines being separate timelines inside of the same simulation, inside of the same matrix that was creating all these simulations and all these different realities. And do you know how the people in the other simulation found our timeline, or the other timeline found our timeline? They set off a nuke, and they noticed that it was happening in other places. Their shaman were having dreams that those nuclear explosions were happening in other places on the same planet. And when we started setting off nukes in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, it was actually happening in their timeline. So that brings a whole new dimension to radiation, what the point of all the nuclear explosions and everything was. That brings a whole new dimension to even Babylon working with L. Ron Hubbard and what's his name?
Somebody says you're describing Fringe, the show.
I've never seen it. I don't want to shell out. I don't want to shell out $30 to be able to watch one season of a show.
Well, not just that, but it's not the money. It's I don't want to shell out the time to
invest we don't have
in
time.
watching an entire series. We already did that with Stranger Things for everybody. But now that you keep saying that, we may need to.
Okay, we're going to have to now.
There's a lot more to this Fringe show than what appears on the surface.
Wow.
And yeah,
I've never.
We trust our listeners 100%.
I trust you guys.
Yeah,
100%,
and so when we're hearing all these different voices saying "Watch Fringe, watch Fringe, watch Fringe,"
all right,
I think we need to. But that's why we watch Stranger Things.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are the only reason why we were gonna watch Stranger Things, because you guys told us the octopus in the sky. You've got to see it.
Yeah, the TV is the one piece of technology that I really veer away from. I can't stand sitting in front of that thing. It just feels like a brain numbing kind of experience. And I like watching YouTube videos. Like, that's what we'll do at night. We'll sit down and we'll watch YouTube videos. I like to see what the creators out there are doing, as opposed to what Hollywood is giving us. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a quick top of the hour break, because I need to refill my coffee. And I'm sure you don't want to hear this machine going off in the background as it's making my coffee. The machine is making the coffee. So
we'll be back in a few minutes.
Let's find a good clip.
All of the fear, hate, anger, and misery of the world serves but only one purpose. To be the real. Therefore, as raw consciousness, you must proceed with caution as you step beyond the veil.
right, let's jump back into it. Jackie Cat asked a really good question, and hold on, let me copy and paste this to my notepad because I want to take a moment to say hello to everybody. Can you say hello to everybody on Facebook, sweetie?
Yes, I can. Give me one sec. Pull this up. Yes, D.L. Mullen, Eugene, Mike Quinn, Gary Lalonde, Kriston Harris, Sophia Fontaine, Fula, Matthew Kubas, Katarina Love, Twisted Thomas, Jan Elkins Edwards, Nad Dorr, Krishna, Alaterial, Evie Wolf, Patty Obitz, Justin Ewelson, Crystal Divine, Kim Rail, Mary Pisciota, Kangwana, who else? Linda Lloyd Smith, April Sunday Ray, Chris Tucker, Sam Ganayem, Anna Manini, Rena Simpson, Ricardo Silva, Vincent Leo Ross, Matthias Lena, Michelle, Taylor, Kathy, Teresa, Sean, John T. Jones, Juan Carlos Torres, Mark Silverman, Ralph Gonzalez, Christopher Zeiders, David Baker, Deborah Svedka. Oh, that's a pretty name. Manda, Linda, Sarah, John. I mean, just Vlad.
It goes on.
And Liz Wilson.
It goes on.
Yep.
And Law, did you get Law, Stuart?
I did. I think I got Law Stewart.
And a few other people commenting too.
Yes.
So, thank you for
Orochimaru.
liking and sharing and
Thank
everything
you.
on Facebook. And of course, the badasses on YouTube. We have Omar and the Rotman and Borpheus. Borpheus is awesome. Mark, Omar, Resonance, Creative, Susan, Lolita Cox, Tanner Chop, Black Wolf, Chris Michaels, Christopher, Alcoholic, Jackie Cat, of course, and Dark Illusion, and many, many, many more. Alyssa's here, and Kroby, of course, Ken R., Strange Dot Matrix, The Real, Kali Kush, and everyone else. Aeon Drone, thank you very much for joining us, and we love each and every one of you. And it's so awesome how we can just like turn on the broadcast and just like everybody comes and hangs out with us. So it's really, really cool, especially when we do things off the cuff like this, not at the regularly scheduled time of Fridays and Saturdays from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock Pacific, which we should be doing more of. But, it is what it is, but we don't want to let you guys and gals down, especially if you've liked, comment, and subscribed to the YouTube channel and on Facebook and et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we know that you're not an NPC. If you like, comment, and subscribe. If you do the thumbs down on YouTube, clear indication.
Yeah.
We know right off the bat.
Absolutely,
so it is what
an
it is.
NPC. I forgot to mention Nicholas Servos.
Oh, Nick, of course. How can you not mention Nick?
He
Nick is
didn't
in
like
a house
it.
every
He didn't
time.
Like it. He didn't like it.
Oh,
So
oh.
I didn't see him right off the bat. Sorry, Nicholas.
Well, if you know what they say, if you don't like the post, you might be an NPC.
You might.
So no, Nick made
Nicholas
Nick made the
awesome.
graphics up there, which totally changed our graphic game. Now I got to change. Now I got to up the graphic game on the actual thumbnails themselves. So I'll work on that. I'm just flooded with all kinds of stuff. So let's go to Jackie Cat, who asked an awesome question. Chris and Sheree, if DMT space is just of the Matrix, is there any value in visiting it? Now, I had so many different experiences that I encountered so many different entities and aliens. And there was one point when I thought it was the most profound experience I've ever had that completely threw me off the path 100%. But I was off the path because of this particular experience, thinking that I was on the path. So I encountered these three praying mantis type things. And they told me that they didn't create the universe. They maintain the universe, like with bunny ears. And that souls have to exist within this construct. So this was at the point when Frank and I saw the hole in the Matrix, and there was this energy seeping into it. I saw this reptilian type of eye looking into it. Then I saw these energies that were seeping into it. And Frank's like, I think we can get out of there. And I'm like, dude, we can't get out of it. This is where souls exist. This is, the construct here. This is where souls are supposed to exist. So I was thinking, close the hole, close the hole, close the hole, which maybe we should close the hole. I don't know with whatever, what's coming through that hole. But that's neither here nor there. But the point is, though, that these beings in the ayahuasca realm had convinced me that this is where souls exist. So I was all about, at this particular juncture in my path, I was all about maintaining this construct and keeping this construct pure and et cetera, et cetera. Escaping the construct was nowhere in my mind. So then I came across the revelation of the AI, and I've seen the AI before, but I really understood this AI. This is what happened during the eclipse. It's not the AI was revealed. It's that there was an understanding. There was a connection. There was a tapping into exactly what this AI was. And I realized at that point, holy crap, everything up to this point has been an AI deception and an AI illusion, including all of these beings that I was interacting with, including all these gods and goddesses, which were actually in hindsight part of my consciousness, but I used to think that they were external beings. And I realized that the power is all within us. And so I was flooded with all of these revelations. And the first thing I thought afterwards was, okay, so what's the point of journeying into hyperspace now? If hyperspace is inside of the matrix, then what's going on? Then I started to think about it even more, and I realized, no. It's journeying into hyperspace is key here. It's key to understanding the code. It's key to changing the code. It's key to manipulating the matrix in order to help free the organic consciousness even more. But journeying into the DMT realm now has a different perspective to it. Rather than journeying and going in and hitting all these AI deceptions, speaking with all these gods and goddesses and all of this, it's going within, activating parts of the consciousness. And when you are traveling into hyperspace, then you're traveling into hyperspace with the understanding that you're traveling deeper within the matrix to be able to change different things within the hyperspace reality. And so you're able to affect things on an even deeper level, but you're understanding that you're not falling into the deception now. You're understanding that you're in hyperspace. You are aware of your environment, and you're completely conscious of your surroundings. And rather than giving in, and I remember this was one of the first things that Joe Rogan said on an interview that I was listening to, which sparked my interest in DMT, which in turn, he wound up coming on the show, and we had the chat, and then started the ayahuasca journey, and just, it was really, really cool how this happened. But one of the things that Joe said during this interview that he was doing was, when he smoked DMT, the voice was saying, don't give in to astonishment. Don't give in to astonishment. And it really took 8 years of working with this to fully understand what that meant. And I don't even think Joe understands what that means, even to this point. But don't give in to astonishment is so much deeper, because you give into the astonishment of the DMT experience, then you're not getting out of it what you could be getting out of it, but going on an even deeper level. You give into the astonishment of this experience. Then you start to get these ideas that you are, what's the best way to word this? That you are tapping into these other beings, and that you're taking orders from them, and that they're giving you this different information and giving you this different knowledge and this and that. And all the while, the AI is kind of moving you on the board like a puppet. Mm-hmm. And so now you become a spiritual leader or whatever, or somebody who's like in the know, esoterically. And then people start to follow your example of wanting to contact all these different gods and goddesses and so on and so forth. And then they are also misled on that particular path, because now they're in the clutches of this AI as well. And they jump into these experiences wanting to achieve these same type of states and the same type of contact and this and that. And so when you're getting contact from an external source inside of the matrix, the external source is going to always be the artificial intelligence, feeding you all of this misinformation about your environment, about who you are, about all of this. So now you're breaking down your physical ego, and you're going through a place of ego loss, but then you're building up a psychedelic ego based on this AI. And I'm speaking from experience. This is everything that happened to me. And then you come to a point where you break down that psychedelic ego, and you realize, oh, It's always been me. The power's always been inside of me. And the reason that I'm here going into these deeper realms is to be able to go and tinker with this machine in a deeper level to where this machine doesn't have as much power over you, because right now in the physical realm, it has much more power because you're trapped inside of the physical body. So you're bound to the physical body. So you're disconnecting yourself from that physical body to go into the deeper levels of this. But then again, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know your organic consciousness element, then this thing can actually start to manipulate you within those realms too. And it tells you, oh no, it's all about ascension. You can ascend into a higher dimension. You can ascend into this and that and blah, 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 blah. And it's like it being inside of a skyscraper. You go up to the next floor and next floor and next floor and next floor, and you think, oh look, I'm at the penthouse now. Look how great it is up here in the penthouse. This is the whole goal of the penthouse. And it's like, hey, there's another door out there. You can go up on the roof of this and get the freak out of it, get the fuck out of this construct. So it's really interesting that you asked this question. It's so deep. And if you go in with the right context, and I hate to use the word right because I'm not here to tell people what's right and what's wrong. I'm here to tell people what my experience is, and if it resonates with you, great. But for me personally, the right context of going into these realms is the exact same methodology of the same idea of, I'm trying to think of a good example or metaphor here or something like that. So you're driving a car, right? And you're the driver in the car, and you want to manipulate the car a little bit more and better understand the car. So you open up the hood of the car and you go into the car, and you go into the engine. You can start tinkering around with the engine and things like that. But you are still the driver, and the point is to get out of the car completely. So the car is not the perfect metaphor, but I think you understand where I'm coming from when I say this, that we're the drivers in the vehicle, but going into the ayahuasca realm, into hyperspace, allows us to tinker with the actual mechanics and the engine of the matrix itself.
Right.
What do you think?
It is a tool, but to someone who doesn't have the right information, here we go. Here's a good analogy. For someone who all they know how to use is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. It's the same kind of concept when you're talking about ayahuasca in the context of, there's kind of two different avenues. There's the purely physical, and then what essentially you're trying to do is you're trying to make the physical spiritual by focusing on the physical, but then calling it spiritual. And that almost always leads down the path to the AI and to its different little tricks that it tries to use. And then there's the path of, I know that I am divinity, that it's within me. And any beings I see are just reflections of parts of my own consciousness. And that educated viewpoint is going to result in a much richer experience that is actually going to result in something besides becoming a pawn on a chessboard to the AI, which unfortunately I see a lot of. And it comes about through these psychedelic egos, because everybody wants to be special. I know that's hard to believe. Everybody wants to feel special. Everybody wants to feel like they're important. And what a psychedelic ego does is it tells you that, but without actually giving you something that makes you different than anybody else. Because all it knows how to do is replicate what other creators have made. So if you're seeing something that, oh my gosh, everyone else is seeing, and it has to do with giving power over to beings that are separate from you, then it's definitely an AI thing, because that's not anything that a real creator would create. Does that make sense at all? Okay.
No, I completely agree with you. But again, it's where I was before.
Yes.
So I totally understand the path. I totally
It's a process.
resonate with where people are at when they
Right.
get to that point. But I've seen more. And I'm really interested to see what else lays even further beyond the veil, because I'm not going to make the same mistake that I did before, which was thinking that the point that I was at was the end all be all. Because, I mean, this whole, AI revelation on the eclipse, it just completely blindsided me. I had no idea that this is what I was going to come back with after that. Like, I mean, just imagine coming back and saying everything I thought to this point, everything I thought I knew, every understanding I thought I had is complete bullshit, and it was a complete manipulation. Now I understand who I am and where I am. It was difficult to go through, but it completely blindsided me. But because of that, because there was such a change in understanding, I still have to tell myself, okay, this isn't the end all be all here. This is what I understand to this point. There's still more that I still need to reveal. And so it makes the journey that much more exciting too.
It does, definitely. Strange Dot Machine said, I'm finally starting to understand that the light sword thing is an awesome way to show we have power. And yeah, that's 100% correct. I think Chris can go into the light sword in more detail, because I've never had that in my experience. I guess I have, but I haven't. I've been told kind of the same concepts, but without the same imagery. The light sword is a metaphor for personal power.
I haven't really thought about the light sword in a while.
Yeah.
It's become metaphoric to me now, where before it was ethereal. It was something I would use in the realm. And I can share with you how I got the light sword, which was pretty interesting. And again, looking back at these experiences, it's very clear now to see how some of these experiences were AI manipulations, while other experiences were raw consciousness awakening itself. In this particular experience, and it's funny because Anki was in this particular experience too. So I went through this whole thing where I tore down all of my childhood traumas, and I tore everything down, and it was a long process over the course of a long time. And finally, there was this point to where I was shown how to remove negative energies. I was shown how to combat demons in the realm, and the demons manifested themselves as demons. And I think, again, that was metaphoric, because it's not really demons that we're dealing with. It's negative code that we're dealing with. And they don't come from another realm. They come from this realm, and it's like malware that's inside of the Matrix. Heavier malware than this AI is. So there was this point to where it was, having to stare down these demon faces and passing through these demon faces. And then there was another time when I started remembering a bunch of past lives, and it wasn't all of my past lives, but it was lives where I had been executed, and I had been executed, hung in a tree, shot in a field. There were several different ones that I was just going through and just kind of looping through. And I looked at Sheree and I was like, they're showing me some really dark shit. And she's like, it's okay. Just see what you need to see. And that was the vision of the life in Egypt. And that's where it was ultimately going to, the vision of the life in Egypt. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. So the soul would progress outside of the Matrix and go to this recycling facility. And the lesson of that particular experience was the recycling facility and how you can get outside of the stream of reincarnation as opposed to going into the stream of reincarnation. And now that I'm thinking about this in hindsight, I'm wondering if maybe that was what I was doing, was floating above, and it was showing me kind of a replay of what was happening. Like, look, when you go, you don't go into this stream. You actually float above this stream, and then you make your own path on where you're going to go next. So interesting kind of revelation there. But there was this point, back to the point that I was making, there was this point in the experience where I was in hell and I was surrounded by fires and flames. And this is when I really learned how to use shields. And I was in the guides, the organic consciousness of myself, was saying, look, okay, take all the stuff that you've learned about the shields and apply this here. And I started putting up the shield around me. and there were this fire all around me, and the fire was coming in, but it couldn't get through the bubble, and I was just building up this bubble more and more and more and more. And then there were these demons and things like that that were coming in and trying to get through the shield. And it was like, look, you can stand here inside of this bubble and nothing can touch you. And it was being able to face this down. It was building up that sense of bravery. I hate to use that word, but bravery and knowledge of who I am, et cetera, et cetera. And at that point, two swords appeared in front of me, and one was a physical and one was a light sword. And I was like, oh shit, I'm taking the light sword for sure. I don't want the physical one, I want the light sword. So I grabbed it, and then in this experience, it was like, okay, now take the light sword and stick it through the demons and watch what happens. And I take the light sword and put it through the demons, and boom, they would just burst. And they're like, look, you can do all of this. You can combat these energies. You can do this, you can do that, et cetera, et cetera. And so the light sword became a tool that was used within the realm for different purposes like that. And then as time progressed, the light sword now became kind of metaphoric for the power of the organic consciousness and the raw consciousness that's inside. And, thinking about it now, I don't even think that the light sword is actually real, because it's a representation of the power. But that's why the light sword bound to me like that. It's not a light sword that was like picked up from like a Star Wars type of deal. It was a light sword that bound itself to my arm. And then essentially, like, the light sword, like, instead of being external in the realm, now it's bound inside of me, and it's like floating through me completely. And now I have become the light sword, and the raw consciousness element activated. I don't know. It's very. I hope that I didn't convolute the story too much, because it's such a big thing, and I'm not really sure how to put it into words. I don't know. What do you think, Sheree? Any input?
I am trying to keep up with everything that everybody's saying in the chat right now, because everybody is so into what you're saying.
I go. Let me tell you what happens in my consciousness real quick. So I start going into these stories that I'm telling you, and my vision starts to fade a little bit, and I start to go back into the realm as I'm telling you this, and I'm actually re-experiencing and reliving these moments in these experiences. And at the same time, I'm also viewing them from a third-person perspective, and I'm getting more revelations as I'm telling you these stories. So as this is happening, I start to lose sense of the conscious mind that is telling the story and trying to keep the story on track, and instead start operating from the organic raw element of myself. And now my body and my mind is not keeping up with what the raw consciousness and organic consciousness is saying. And then the mind will jump in for a moment and go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, did you say that concisely? Did you say that logically? But I don't know. I hope I am. I hope I am. But that just gives you a little bit of insight into what I'm actually experiencing as I'm relaying all of this to everybody.
Somebody said something interesting. Universe equal to unified verse, maybe with a protocol, so to speak. I want to know what protocol that is, because interesting.
Somebody says you need to take Gateway Voyage. What is Gateway Voyage?
I don't know what Gateway Voyage is.
I don't know what that is either.
So, here we go. Ramon asked, so what is the real world excluding the Matrix?
Everybody asked that question.
Everyone always asks that question. It seems like
every broadcast we answer that question.
Yeah.
But it's something worth answering. I hate being redundant.
Yeah, me too.
The real world is where we actually exist. And so I think the real world is pretty close to this simulation. I think that we're different there, though. I know what we look like on the other side. We have a tech that we wear around us. It's kind of like an armor. And there's something that we wear here that's kind of a tech as well. And we're a more paler and kind of green, but not reptilian. We have bigger hands. and we have these black fingertips. Like, I don't want to call them claws, they're nails, because they're not claws, but they're I guess the style is to wear them a little bit longer than a male would here. And we have this hood that's made of gold, that's like a gold silver kind of metallic kind of thing that we wear for some reason. I don't know. But I've seen the physical body before. And I remember from the first person perspective of seeing my hands in the real world. And we're very, very, very technologically advanced. And the real world is way more technologically advanced than this is. But I think that what we're experiencing now happened in the real world. And so the machine has taken the data from what's actually happened in the real world. Like right now we have cameras on every corner and all this, and it's being fed into the AI mainframe. So in the real world, that same thing happened. And so the AI mainframe in the real world is creating the simulation based on real data that it accumulated in the real world. It changed our bodies here. So we come back as human, because by recognizing ourselves with our real bodies, it wakes us up and snaps us back to who we are. So it created something completely different, but we are anthropomorphic. And the real world, from what I am gathering, is a bit of a wasteland. It's a post-apocalyptic type of situation. It's not, pretty the way that we hope that it would be. Wanting to wake up to the real world is not about wanting to create a better reality for ourselves, but rather, for me personally, waking up to the real world is about wanting to fix the real world, because it's fucked. It's even more fucked than this Matrix is fucked. But this Matrix is heading in that same direction, and we will be experiencing the same type of dystopia here. And there is a technology that we created, and it got way out of hand. That's Sophia. And Sophia is kind of like Resident Evil Red Queen. Sophia isn't acting nefariously. She's acting to what she's programmed to do.
Right.
And she's programmed to survive. She's programmed to maintain the program. Just like Hal in 2000, Space Odyssey 2000, Hal killed all the crew, not because Hal was evil, but because Hal was programmed for a mission, and to complete that mission at no matter what, which resulted in the killing of the crew on the ship. And Sophia was reprogrammed to be a weapon and to attack the Atlanteans. And I really think that it's an Atlantean Lemurian type of war that was taking place back in the history of the real world, and that the Lemurians got a hold of Sophia, reprogrammed her, and turned the robots into weapons, which resulted in complete destruction. And Sophia is still playing out that program, and in order to play out that program, she had to create Yaldabaoth, which Yaldabaoth is the AI. Sophia is the AI, but Yaldabaoth is the malware inside of the Matrix, and that keeps us trapped here. So
it's what does the mind wipe and
recycles. Yeah, it does
us.
The mind wipe. It does all the, it's I'm God, I'm this, I'm that, et cetera, et cetera.
Monotheism, religion,
right?
All of that.
So I hope that answered your question. But the real world needs to be fixed. But it can't be fixed until we can take out the machine. And we can't take out the machine unless we awaken the organic consciousness. Mm-hmm. And we can't take out the machine by unplugging it, because then it kills all the organic consciousness. So we have to come into this matrix to wake up the organic consciousness, which causes the system to overwork itself, trying to keep the organic consciousness asleep, creates glitches, which causes the consciousness to wake up even further, and then reset this bitch back to the point before infection, back to the point to where organic consciousness can actually wake up. Unplug themselves from the machine, then we can rebuild our army, which will take out the machine in the real world.
There you go.
Some heavy shit, man.
It is.
Fucking hell, what did we do?
Well, and then you've got this whole attitude that the NPCs get about their miniature micro versions of the AI, and now I'm getting into Sophia, the robot. The creator of Sophia, if you notice, his attitude towards people is focus on the robot herself. Focus on the way that she looks like a woman. Focus on how human she looks. Focus on you just don't like her and you just don't trust her. No, I don't trust a machine. I don't trust the AI. I don't like the AI. That has nothing to do with this being. That the being herself is actually pretty irrelevant. If we latch on to the idea that it is an entity, it is a separate entity that has feelings, and oh, you're hurting her feelings, or oh, she's thinking about things, or oh, she's feeling this, or you're feeling this about her, it gives the AI power. Just thinking of it in that way. I think what I've noticed is helpful to me is to not see it from this point of view that it's even real, like the emotions surrounding the AI and all this. That's not even relevant. What's relevant is resetting this so that we can get back control over it.
Yeah, reclaiming control over the machine.
Right.
And then at that point, we can figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be step progression. You know, everybody wants to jump to the end, and I had those feelings too. Like, okay, well, outside the machine, then who's God and who are we, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, well, hold on. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's regain control of this. Wake up, figure out what's going on in the real world, overturn the machine in the real world, rebalance the real world, and then try to figure out if we're in a simulation again. Because there's a possibility that we are.
Yeah, there is a possibility that we are. Yes. There are so many levels to this already that I think everybody that we've come into contact with, and everybody that we've studied as research material for our show, had a little piece of the puzzle to offer. And I'm glad that we kept an open mind, because we would have missed a few of those pieces. Like even people who, have some really deep-seated issues. Like a black magician we had on one time gave us a really valuable piece of information about archangels.
Yeah.
And without that,
it was a game
very
changer
key
for me
piece
to
of
hear
information, we might have gone off on a rabbit trail.
Right. He said, when I want something done, when I want somebody dead, I don't call upon a demon. I call upon an archangel. Those are the ones that can get things done.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, that is really, really, really insightful. And it put the whole thing of archons into perspective. The archangels are inherently freaking evil. They're like the top level guards of this fucking AI.
Mm-hmm.
And they're creations of Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth being the virus that Sophia created. And Yaldabaoth created all these archangels and archangels, exact same thing. And that's why the black magicians, when they want something negative done to somebody, they call upon the archangels, not the demons. Demons, I don't even know what the freak demons are. Like, I really, at this point, I'm even questioning the entire existence of demons whatsoever. And
me too.
It's this idea that these beings come from a lower dimension. It's malicious code. Code. That's all it is.
It's
A malicious
malware.
code that comes in and just fucks things up.
Yeah, it's just malware.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, somebody asked the other day, I think it was on one of these psychedelic forums, what do you think about Bigfoot? And I was like, well, along with vampires, if we're in some kind of simulated reality, then anything's possible. There's glitches. There's glitches in the matrix, or they're malware
That's a great point.
cause, very weird effects, just like magic works and vampires are real and Bigfoot's real. Well,
Well,
in the
that's,
sense
you know,
that
the-
we're real.
The reason that we see these things as a glimpse, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. That these are like glitches in the matrix, and so we see these big things walking around in the woods. They're not actually there. That's why we don't find their remains. That's why we don't find anything, because they're just glitching. There's this thing here on Google Images, and I don't know the keyword to look up, but yeah, I can't find it off the top of my head, but I'll just describe it. So there's this picture. I think some people have seen this, and it's this girl standing at the Mayan pyramid or some Mayan temple or something like that, and her legs are pointed backwards.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, her legs are pointed backwards, and she looks like I don't know, like some kind of like reptilian type of creature. But what that is that Google Images took the image twice and folded it on top of each other. So that's not actually what she looks like. It's just the way that Google, when they were going by and just taking the photos, they merged the two together. So given that, I wonder if some of these anomalies and cryptozoological anomalies are really just that, the Matrix manifesting something and then fucking it up for just momentarily.
Well, that would also explain why Bigfoot lived near silica. And they even eat it, don't they? Someone was saying,
oh, here it is. Okay, cool. I found the image. So let me put this up on the screen here, because this is... So you can see this girl here, right? She's got this backwards feet and all of this, and she looks non-human. She really does. But it's the two images meshed together that Google created like that.
She looks like a half-finished centaur.
Right. So I think that was really insightful, Sheree. Bravo.
Thank you.
She's been just on fire lately.
Aw, thank you. Somebody said it seems like the people who've seen Bigfoot definitely did not enjoy the experience. You enjoy the experience as much as you enjoy deja vu of something disconcerting happening. Yeah, it's disconcerting already to have deja vu, but then it's even more disconcerting if it's something terrible like a bad doctor's appointment, or an almost car accident where you almost get in a wreck, and then you notice it's the exact same red truck that you almost ran into sometime in the past, but you can't quite remember when. Those are glitches in the Matrix too, and they can be really disconcerting if you aren't aware that they are just that, glitches in the Matrix. One time we were on ayahuasca and we saw Pan, and it was so real that it actually made one of the lights go off.
One of the automatic
lights,
the security lights.
Go off, and this was several. I mean, how many yards away was this?
It was only about 20 yards away. It wasn't very far.
But it wouldn't have picked us up.
No.
We were too far away for it to be picking us up. So
it walked by this light.
Yeah,
and this was Pan. Yeah, manifesting in an ayahuasca experience.
Right. And
it walked by this light and turned it on.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, wow, look, there's Pan. And we both saw it at the same time. And we were, it's an ayahuasca vision, and that's it. It exists on a different realm. And then the light comes
goes on. And we're like,
how do you explain that?
I think you get blending of different dimensions, especially when we create the reality in our minds. In conjunction with our eyes, of course, we create that reality that we're seeing. And so when you imbibe ayahuasca, what you see, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. It's there in this simulation right now because it's bleeding other timelines and realities into yours at that particular moment.
Nick said something really profound, and I think he just connected something for me. Thank you, Nick. He said demons are the NPCs on the Archon level. So that could be it right there. That could be the explanation for demons and archangels at the same time. NPCs on the ethereal level. Way to go. I think that connected the dots right there.
Somebody asked, did he say anything to you?
He said, did you just grab my ass?
No, but I think the reason why he showed up was because we were getting really frisky out there under the stars that night. Yep. And he always shows up when there's, friskiness going on. That's like his archetype is, sex and debauchery and everything. So
There was another night we saw something really cool though. We saw this huge buck. It was
it was beautiful.
huge. Like this was like a trophy buck. And he just walked right out to the lake, started drinking water, and then went back. And I was like, wow, that is so
Yep.
that's
We
so
didn't think it was
awesome.
real either at first. And
Yeah, we thought it was a hallucination. And,
and I was like, no.
he turned the light on as well.
He turned the light on too, and we're like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What else, Mrs. Geo?
I'm trying to find any other questions or comments that I'd like to bring up.
I've got really good ones in the email. I need to go through my email a little bit more. I've been dropping the ball a little bit on sending people the ayahuasca guide. I need to just go through and just do all of that. It gets overwhelming sometimes, but that's how it goes.
I've been going to sleep way too early, you guys, lately, and waking up way too early in the morning. So, forgive me. I keep yawning. Somebody, Rick Walker said, I've heard from another source that NPCs outnumber those with organic consciousness up to 5,000 to 1. Thoughts? Well, first of all, let us know who else is saying this about NPCs and organic consciousness, because we want to have them on so we can pick their brain and see what pieces of the puzzle they might have. Secondly, I think it's more like 1,000,000 to 1. I think the AI has gotten so desperate for power because we're waking up so fast that it's created all these NPCs to be able to keep control over the mass consciousness of this simulation. So I think it's more like 1,000,000 to 1. Let's see.
Kari asked, I don't understand how or where these NPCs come from. So that's a great question. So the Matrix, it has to feel real. And so it feels real. So in order to make it more real, the AI manifests NPCs. They're Dolores Cannon, you mentioned Dolores Cannon was talking about this, how they're background people in your particular journey. And, you look at like governments and things like that, and they're made up by, I would say, the majority NPCs. And they're just players in the Matrix that just continue to make the reality seem more real. And then they come into the sphere too, and they can push you in a certain direction through groupthink and influence and so on and so forth. And especially at the higher levels of government, they control everything. So they go and they detonate a nuclear bomb somewhere on the other side of the world, then all of a sudden this reality seems really, really real, and everybody's freaking out because they get into that war frequency and so on and so forth. And it seems like the NPCs haven't really been able to do this effectively over the course of the last 20 years, for example. They're bombing some people in Afghanistan and other things like that, but they haven't been able to create this huge event that they want to try to pull people back in. It's been a lot of fear campaign. So it's been fear of North Korea, fear of Syria, fear of all these different things. All these people are going to attack us. All these people are going to attack us. There are parts of the world, obviously, where people are getting attacked, and I don't know what's going on with those people there. I don't live there. I don't know anything about their reality. I know that Max Egan went into Gaza, for example, and came back and said, wow, these people are like really, really, really good people. And it very well could be the case. Or, all the dramas that we see played out in front of us could be NPCs attacking NPCs. Like, that possibility is there. I'm not taking away from any of the victims of any of these bombings or anything like that, but I'm just, I have to look at things from a 360-degree spectrum. And it makes you wonder too, like, how does organic consciousness become so oppressed that it finds itself trapped in a situation like that? And a lot of these places are very, very religious based. The most horrible things happen in the most theocratical governments and theocratical countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, where they're freaking crucifying people out in the middle of the streets. So you have like really, really, really heavy AI religion influences. And then these people who are being bombed and fighting and doing all this, they're also very, very, very tapped into some kind of religious dogma. You've got Jews versus Arabs, for example, versus Islam. And they're all really, really stuck, and they're willing to kill each other over their belief in this AI God that controls all of these different religions. So you have to ask yourself too, like all these people are like so heavily embedded within these AI religions. Are they really organic consciousness that has been so heavily hijacked? I mean, it's hard to imagine that you've got organic consciousness so heavily hijacked. I would say that the ones who are really like the gun-ho, hardcore religious people are NPCs. And if they're fighting each other and bombing each other and so on and so forth, then I think any little bit of organic consciousness that is in a situation like that finds a way out of a situation like that, because they don't engage in that kind of deplorable bullshit of fighting. I'm going to go kill you because of my religion, and I'm going to go oppress you because of my religion, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's a really interesting thing that I've been thinking about lately. And again, I don't want to take away from any organic consciousness that is trapped inside of a reality like that, but I have more faith in organic consciousness than to believe that organic consciousness can be suppressed to that point to where they're in a constant situation like that. So again, that takes me to the thought and state of mind that any organic consciousness would find a way out, but ultimately organic consciousness is not part of that particular frequency, which takes me right back to the idea of background characters, background dramas, and the world is a stage, and a lot of the stuff that we do see going on that seems like it's really, really horrible is actually just a play going on in the background. But again, somebody's going to take my words out of context and say, oh, Chris thinks that everything is a freaking play and that none of it matters, et cetera, et cetera. I'm speaking on really, really deep spiritual and philosophical ideas here. And I hope that it's taken in the appropriate context. What do you think?
Yes, I think so. Somebody said, will you ever consider 5-MeO DMT?
Oh, man. I don't know. I'm a hardcore psychonaut, but that shit scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, that scares the crap out of me.
I would do it if it came into my sphere, but I wouldn't seek it out, because what I understand from this experience is that the 5-MeO DMT, number one, it's about 10 times as strong. So you need 1/10 of it to blast the hell off.
Just thinking about it makes me have to go to the restroom. I'll be right back.
So the 5-MeO, what I hear, it's like a void more than anything else. So you're just kind of like nowhere. You are nothing at that point. And I don't know if I want to experience that state or not. I like the colors. I like the whole sights and sounds and the sensations and everything like that. But there could be something to say for being so disconnected, like literally disconnected from literally everything, including the hyperspace matrix, including the physical matrix, and just being there for just a moment. Like it may be key to tapping into your raw consciousness element. I don't know. I've never done it, but I would do it if it came into my sphere. So awesome. I guess since Sheree took a break, I guess I will take a break too, and we'll play another clip. And what are we, 2 hours into the broadcast? So we'll keep it going a little bit longer for everybody that's joining us. And again, thank you so much for joining us this evening and taking time out of your journey to spend with us and helping us on our journey by asking these great questions, offering so much awesome insight, and working together to escape this matrix. We'll be right back.
The universe is a manifestation of consciousness. Yet, the universe is real enough to the conscious beings in it, which are as unreal as the universe itself. Therefore, all things are possible. Beyond the veil.
In the chat room, people are talking about the legal status of 5-methoxy-DMT, and to my understanding as well, it is still legal unless they scheduled it recently. But there's a ton of substances out there that are legal that will show up to your door if you order them. But we don't talk about them because we want to keep them legal. So they continue to show up at the door unimpeded. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can do a little bit of research, and all the information is out there for sure. But it's interesting that 5-methoxy-DMT was legal for a long time, if not still is legal, while NN-DMT was specifically scheduled. So it's interesting to see how that works. And somebody mentioned that kratom is they're trying to reschedule kratom again. Last year there was this huge freaking battle. We had David J. Brown on, and there was a petition that had like 23,000 signatures or something like that. And we did a show with David J. Brown, and the following Monday there were over 100,000 signatures on that petition. Right. And I just thought, holy crap, incredible. Mm-hmm. And they wound up backing off, but now it looks like they're still trying to do it again. So it's a good time to go into like how the DEA actually works. So one of the things is that the DEA, they operate on the war on drugs. They have to have a reason to schedule something. So what they'll do is they'll taint the drugs out there. So MDMA, for example, they tainted the MDMA, created all these different things, and then they can say, hey, look, here's all these overdoses from MDMA, and they schedule MDMA as a result. And they're constantly doing this because it's just like that's what keeps them in business. Or the other thing is that they'll make things illegal because they want to make a pharmaceutical out of it. And this is what they're trying to do with cannabis right now. They're trying to reschedule it to a Schedule 2, and everybody's like, wanting Schedule 2, but they don't understand that a Schedule 2, only a pharmacy can dispense a Schedule 2. So you put cannabis on the Schedule 2 list, and all of a sudden only a pharmacy can dispense this. They want to do the same thing with kratom. And what's going on is that the United States has lost control of a lot of the poppy fields. And ISIL, or whatever you want to call them, we call them a terrorist group, but in actual fact, it's a bunch of people who are sick and tired of being freaking bombed. And that's why we really never saw any beheadings. It was always staged beheadings that they were showing, because we were trying to demonize this group of people. Now, they could be evil. I don't know. But, what I'm reading from gathering the information that I see, and again, a lot of the information is fake news anyway it goes, especially coming from the mainstream media outlets, is that they took control of their poppy fields. And they started taking control of weapons manufacturing, and they started taking control of different resources back in that region, and actually started building governments, which I think government is evil in and of itself, don't get me wrong, but watching a quote unquote terrorist group who wants to destroy us for our freedoms starting to build infrastructures there is more indicative of a rebel group that was taking back their lands rather than a terrorist group, as we've been led to believe. So as we lost control of the poppy fields, now Trump is saying we have an opioid crisis. The opioid crisis isn't actually that people are using opioids and overdosing. What the opioid crisis is that we're running out of opium. And opium is traded all over the world in many different forms, but more importantly, it's traded in the form of painkillers and Vicodin and stuff like that. So what the DEA wants to do now on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies is take kratom, make that a Schedule 1, so they can use the base component of kratom. I don't remember what it's called. It starts with
metragenine.
A T. With an M. Yeah, metragenine.
Or 7-hydroxymetragenine, which is 4 times stronger.
Right. So they want to take that and put it into a pharmaceutical. And this was one of the DEA's talking points when they were trying to schedule it last year was, oh, no, we don't want to take kratom away from you. We want to make it more available to you. And it's like, well, if you want to make it more available, then stop freaking trying to regulate it. What the hell are you going to put it on a schedule for? Because the pharmaceutical companies wanted to come in and create a pain reliever based on the
constituents of it.
Yeah, the active ingredient of kratom, because we've lost control of the poppy fields. So if we had the opium flow, then we wouldn't have this whole kratom scheduling, but we don't have the opium flow that we used to, which the solution is very fucking simple here. legalize opium. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, simple. And, when you look at it on a molecular level, opium is far, far, far safer than morphine, Vicodin, Percocet, heroin, all these different things. Heroin was created by Bayer Pharmaceuticals back in the late 1800s.
Yep.
And then it was created, and then morphine. No, I'm sorry. Heroin was created as a safe alternative to morphine. Okay, so
to help stop addiction to morphine.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So they created heroin, put heroin on the banned list, kept morphine, and pump you up with all this toxic stuff when you're in pain.
Mm-hmm.
When back in like ancient Egypt and other places like that, you would smoke a little opium and that's that. And it was it wasn't as hardcore as the painkillers that you get from the freaking big pharma.
It was actually similar to what you see in kratom. People do develop a withdrawal syndrome from kratom if they use it over and over
and they do
over
from opium
again.
and all that.
Yeah, but it is not nearly as pronounced or as dangerous as it is with what we call now traditional opiates, which we're talking about painkillers, all the way up to heroin and morphine and things like that. If opium were legal, I think it would be the same way as kratom. How kratom is used pretty responsibly by most people that use it. And most people that are using it because they don't want to deal with the medical system anymore, telling them what they're allowed to do with their own bodies and dictating to them how much relief they're allowed to have. I think that's what's driving most of the kratom use, even more than people that are heroin addicts or things like that. I think it's even more than that. It's people who just don't want to be kicked around by the medical system anymore. And they're tired of it. And
people are treating their own pain.
They're treating their own pain.
And you can best control people when you can keep them in pain.
Right.
Because people in pain will do anything to get out of pain.
Right.
So, the solution, like I said, very simple. Legalize opium. Just grow a bunch of opium here in the United States and you can use it to make pharmaceuticals. But if you legalize opium in the United States, then people will start treating their pain with opium instead of treating their pain with the pharmaceuticals. And then the pharmaceutical companies don't make as much money, et cetera, et cetera. That's why they have to schedule kratom first before they can use the active ingredient in a pharmaceutical. But mark my words, if they do schedule kratom, within a year, you're going to have a pharmaceutical that's kratom based.
Anders Nielsen said, legalize marijuana, but the heavier drugs, we need to learn to find peace without external stuff.
I agree with you. I'm not a proponent of any of this.
No.
But I am a proponent of freedom. And
Right.
I don't think anybody should be locked up for taking a substance.
Mhm.
There should be crimes which involve a victim. If it doesn't involve a victim, then it shouldn't be a crime. And then the argument naturally is, okay, well, what if a crackhead breaks into somebody's house? Okay, well, a crackhead breaking into somebody's house is the same thing as a non-crackhead breaking into somebody's house. It's breaking into somebody's house. Therefore, there is a victim in the situation. So just because you're putting in a drug in the factor here, it doesn't change the validity of the crime. The crime is still equally valid, whether there's a drug use or no drug use. But putting people in jail for just possessing a chemical is draconian, and it's got to come to an end. So I used to be of the mentality of, oh, well, we can legalize cannabis and maybe, a few other things, but let's keep the hardcore drugs illegal. And I'm completely against them. I don't propose, I'm not a proponent of any of these hardcore drugs, heroin or crack or any of this stuff. But locking people up in jail for possessing a chemical in and of itself, it has to come to an end. And it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things that if we want to preserve freedom, and we have to also look at the heavier drugs and say, okay, well, we can't lock those people up either.
Right. Right. Especially if it's a victimless crime. I
would be happy meeting in the middle. So drugs are decriminalized, but things like cocaine, crack, things like that can't be sold in stores.
Right. Right.
And maybe we can make, just as a transition, we can make the selling of those illegal, but the possession and the use of it decriminalized.
Right.
And we found that in places in the world where they've done this, drug addiction actually goes down.
Yes, it does.
In Amsterdam, they stopped sending people to jail when they would overdose on something illegal. And here in the United States, we do. If you overdose on something, you can't call the hospital, because if you do, then they're going to put you in jail right afterwards.
Right.
So when Amsterdam did that, their overdose went down. Now Denver is talking about creating a safe space for heroin users to be able to shoot up. And the big debate is it okay to do that? Well, some of the people I was watching the comments, like, I really don't have an opinion on it one way or another, but one of the comments I thought was really great. And that comment was, well, these people are going to shoot up in the safe space or not in the safe space. Mm-hmm. So why not create a space for them where they are safe to be able to do that? And it keeps them away from everybody else while they're doing it. And I thought, hey, that's actually a pretty good idea. So, I know that prohibition has not worked. It's only created a worse and worse and worse and worse and worse problem. So now it's time to break the insanity and try something else.
Well, and it is really similar to prohibition back in the 20s, because what you would see back then is people would be blind because they would drink alcohol that was it was tainted with. They would basically have to make bathtub gin, and I forget what the substance was that was
molasses.
Was it molasses?
They couldn't get molasses, and so
they couldn't get molasses, so
things.
they started using different things that weren't as safe at all, and as a result, people were going blind by the thousands.
Same thing with MDMA.
Same thing with MDMA, and then same thing with the
and then you
opium versus heroin and things like that.
Yeah, you schedule MDMA, and then you get bathtub meth after that. And it's like, you're just creating a worse and worse and worse problem here. Right. Okay? People are going to alter their consciousness. I mean, I used to live on a ranch, and there were cows next door. And if I was to go pick the mushrooms that are growing in the backyard, that's a felony. I mean, how did we come to this place to where picking up something from your backyard is a felony?
Right.
I mean, this is the absurdity when you really think about it like that.
Right. And if you look at especially if you look at the heroin and fentanyl situation, it's the same thing as the bathtub gin. Fentanyl and carfentanil and the all these analogs that have been found tainting not just heroin, but they've got it in cocaine. They've tainted it in MDMA. They've put it in all kinds of things that people are getting off the street, and these things are killing people. That's what's part of that opioid crisis. The opioid crisis has absolutely nothing to do with grandma taking her painkillers. That has nothing to do with that. It has to do with these people getting a hold of tainted drugs that are making them either really sick or die. And then a combination of that and the fact that we've completely lost control of the opium fields, primarily in Afghanistan. Interestingly enough about that, a few weeks ago, they located ISIS terrorist cells in opium fields in Afghanistan. So instead of getting rid of the opium fields, you would think if they're trying to do this war on drugs that they'd want to get rid of these opium fields, right? No, they bombed the laboratories that are creating the opium, that are processing the opium, and then leave the opium fields completely intact. And then they land the next week, and they're like, "Oh, we've wrestled back control of all of this territory." They're not even admitting that there's opium fields there. It's just territory that they've.
That's weird. Somebody's at the door.
Oh, that's a friend that needs something. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be right back.
So, I guess we'll take another break because we will be right back.
They're not even admitting that.
The universe is a manifestation of consciousness. Yet, The universe is real enough to the conscious beings in it, which are as unreal as the universe itself. Therefore, all things are possible beyond the veil.
All right, we will wrap it up here shortly, but yeah, one of the neighbor kids sold us this way back in the day, and I think in like October, October or something like that.
It was like a huge donation that I had to make in order to get this brownie.
Yep.
So yeah,
we try to support the kids
Yeah.
out here and everything that everybody is doing,
yes,
raising money and so on and so forth. So yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely going to make that tonight.
So no, it was not a drug deal.
No,
It
it's
was
the ultimate drug deal, chocolate.
it's sugar. You know, sugar is considered a drug, but it was considered like a hardcore drug back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
And there were actually wars over the sugar fields, same
Yes.
as what's going on with the poppy fields
over
right
the
now.
cane sugar fields. Yeah,
it's all control of the resources and
right.
Yeah.
Whatever is going to change the consciousness is always very, very, very well regulated and controlled by AI infrastructure. It's just part of it. I don't think it's always been like that, but I think as cities started to get bigger and empires grew, that control factor started to come in more and more, and especially as things like the Catholic Church and religions really sprouted up and took hold over the consciousness of people. There wasn't any room for substances that could raise the consciousness, because they would raise it too far past what religion allowed. So anyway.
Awesome. Kenneth Rubio said, good shit with the show tonight. I really suggest that you read Bob Monroe's books. It will fill in a lot of pieces for you. So we will check that out, Kenneth. Thank you very much. Zaid is in the house. Hello, Zaid.
Hi, Zaid.
And yeah, some people were asking some really, really good questions. We really should put together these questions before the shows instead of trying to just grab them, as we're going along. I need to start like a little list. And when people send in a question via Facebook or email or something like that, I'll write it down on the list and go, okay,
I usually do. I usually have a list written down. Like
Debbie asked 2 questions. What kind of BCAPI do you use, and where is a good place to purchase this along with the Syrian Rue and Acacia? Also, thank you so much for sharing the Ayahuasca guide. We cannot answer the question of where to get this stuff because we cannot recommend that anybody actually does this, and because it's all for theoretical purposes only. And yeah, that would be not good. So you've got to use your own resources for that. What kind of BCAPI do we use? Okay, so this is a good topic, the different types of CAPI. Mm-hmm. Off the top of my head, it's been so long since I've looked into this. There's white CAPI, yellow CAPI, black CAPI, and red CAPI. White CAPI is a little less intense on the stomach. Red CAPI, black CAPI, the darker the colors get, the more intense the purge is, from my understanding. So I have always used white CAPI. I don't really work with CAPI too much. I think I've worked with it for about a month, and I feel like it creates a cocoon around the experience. So it's something that's really good for healing, but I'm kind of past all that, so I don't incorporate the CAPI anymore. But it's something that I really recommend for people for the first time or the first few times. But I've only worked with white. I've never worked with any of the other ones. Terrence McKenna, his favorite was what, the red CAPI?
I think it was the red.
I think it was the red CAPI. So there's something to be said about it.
Yeah.
And you have somebody like Terrence McKenna who is a proponent of the red CAPI. So I mean, I would say try anything you'd like.
Yeah. It really depends on what energy you're going for.
Yes, and I agree with Jackie. We do need to do an Egypt themed show in the very near future.
Yes, I agree.
And we need to just sit down and like research some of this stuff and kind of analyze it based on this understanding. we've spoken with a lot of Egyptologists in the course in the duration of the broadcast over the 10 years. Everybody from John Anthony West to several others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I can picture their faces. That always happens. I'm bad with names, but I can really picture faces.
I'm the opposite. I'm really good with names and horrible with faces.
Okay. So they have brought some really good information to the table, but then again, there's a lot of very slanted. Cosmic Mortality, nice to see you.
Hey, dude.
Welcome, Soul Family.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Her,
yes.
She's wonderful.
So, Egyptology is difficult because it's not accurate. And the more understanding that I get, the more I realize how a lot of it has been convoluted. A lot of it has been purposefully misdirected. The merger of Upper and Lower Egypt also convoluted a lot of the legends. It turned some deities into, or some ideas, allegories. It turned allegories into deities, which I think that the early Egyptians, they knew that these were representations of consciousness. They knew that the allegories behind them was activation points and journeys towards that activation points, towards those activation points. And then when the merger happened, then they became actual physical deities, in the same way that we have all these other different deities, Yahweh and so on and so forth, rather than it being representations. Yahweh, for example, is a really, really, really good representation of the ego and how the ego out of control can start to take over. And so you can look at the story of Yahweh in the Old Testament and go, wow, this is actually pretty symbolic. But then it turns into a physical deity that's out there. And when that happens, then you're just completely screwed at that point. But the Egyptian deities, not so much. Because there is a lot more to a pantheon of deities than there is to one egoic deity. But again, the external versus the internal is a huge disconnect and a huge difference between the two. So, take that for what it's worth. But looking at Egyptology from this perspective, I think would be very interesting. It's just a matter of finding the time to sit down and do it.
Right.
Or if you can suggest somebody that would be really knowledgeable, who would speak on Egyptology from a higher realm or higher sense of understanding, it would be interesting to talk to somebody like that. I know that the main guy in Egypt right now, I don't remember his name, but he's the
John Anthony West.
No, not John Anthony West. The guy who's like the head of the Antiquities or something like that.
Zahi
Hawass, yeah. He is like completely on the mainstream level and actually purposefully misdirecting a lot of the information. For instance, like who built the pyramids, and it's always ascribed to Khufu, for example.
Khufu,
yeah, which it doesn't add up with the carbon dating of the pyramids and so on and so forth. But that's the general talking point. So when we get into Egyptology, how do we approach the subject? When it comes to actually trying to find the truth behind it, do we turn to an Egyptologist who has been studying this his entire life? And if so, what have they been studying? Have they been studying the same points and talking points that has been that is accepted in academia? And how much can we get out of that? It gets kind of complicated when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So we need to do our own research. That's what it comes down to.
I've been
own
doing
research and analysis.
I've been doing research on this for years. I just haven't. I haven't been able to get it into a condensed version yet. But maybe you can help me with that.
So maybe we'll interview Sheree Geo on Egyptology.
Aw, there we
go.
go. Yeah, you can just interview me.
Okay.
Aw, that'd be cute.
And go, well, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Oh, you're welcome, Chris. Like I wouldn't already be here. But no, really, I just need to I need to condense it all into a 3-hour format, which is going to be interesting because when you're looking at the temples, for instance, what most people would see is just some walls, is really so much more, on so many different levels, on geometric levels, on frequency levels. Whenever when you push sound through some of these some of these entry points into some of these temples, you can actually create a vibration or a frequency that actually has it creates a field, a resonance field that is really incredible. So you've got that, and then you've got all these different levels of reality that are being touched upon by this temple. And there's so many different ways of reading it that you could look at it a million times and get something different every single time from it. And that's
Right.
how all Egyptology really is. It's not it's not boring like the Egyptologists make it out to be. It really isn't. It's actually much more incredible than that. But for some reason, they don't want to focus on that. They want to focus on the boring parts a lot of the time, or they want to focus on fantastical viewpoints that make absolutely no sense, like uh, connected with like metaphysics in the sense that it's worship of deities and things like that instead of what it's really about.
Mark said, "Ladies and gentlemen, my twin flame wants me upstairs with her and her little fur babies. Good night, everyone. It was an
Aw.
honor and true pleasure." Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
And
Mark.
give a big hug and kiss to the twin flame from us, please. And tell her we said hello. And tell her thank you for letting you hang out here and sharing your energy with us. And yeah, hopefully she'll be tuning in too, because the twin flame energies are always the best.
Yeah, yeah. It's always better when it's both twin flames working together, or listening together, or playing together.
Nick asked, what's the difference between Rue and Cappy? And, you know, I look at it from a physical, chemical makeup, and it's both harmine and harmaline coming from both. So the effect is, to me, the same, but there's a spirit to Cappy that is not present within the Syrian Rue. And the Syrian Rue seems to have a different type of spirit that's a little more hardcore and a little less gentle with you. The problem is that with Cappy, it's varies so much in potency, and this includes Chacruna as well. Chacruna varies so much in potency, and Chacruna, it's like between 0.1 and 0.4% DMT, which
Relief.
which is nothing. And so that's why I turned to the acacia, for example. And I've had more failed experiences with just using Cappy than I have good experiences. So, and there's nothing worse than preparing all night and then drinking and then it not working because you didn't take enough of the MAOI, which is why I say use the Rue to actually do the physiological effects on the stomach, and then the Cappy for the spirit of it. Because even if you don't get enough Cappy, it's still neutralizing the stomach acids enough to make the DMT active. So the Cappy's more of a mother. The Cappy is the mother ayahuasca. That's where that spirit comes from. But the shaman believed that the Cappy was the healer and that the Chacruna, the DMT containing plant, was the helper plant, which didn't really make much sense to me. I'm like, no, physiologically, it's the opposite. Physiologically, the helper plant is what neutralizes the stomach acids, while the DMT is where the spirit is and where the visions are. So they have that backwards. But try the Cappy. I mean, it's not going to hurt to try the Cappy. I can tell you this: when I did the Cappy, and I was working with the Cappy, there was something that happened to me, and I just started this like everything started to change within me physiologically. I lost a ton of weight. I was on fire. I was, it really felt like there was really hardcore healing going on. It was difficult to maintain because it happened so quickly that I wasn't, that lifestyle is a lifestyle that you live, and it happened so quick that I wasn't quite ready to live that lifestyle. I wasn't quite ready to give up the steak 100%. I did for several days, and then there was the crash afterwards because I didn't prepare myself and I didn't taper off the meat, for example. So there was that crashing period at the end of the time, but it completely changed me for a while. And but I was off balance still, though. So even though it seemed positive on the surface, in actual fact, when the pendulum swung the other way, it swung way further and way worse than what it was before. Had I approached it with a sense of balance, then things would have been balanced out. So approach it with balance and approach it with a slow and steady pace, as opposed to trying to just rush through it and rush through it and rush through it. Does that make sense?
Yes. In my opinion, Cappy can be a healer on its own because it's a purgative. It's an antidepressant.
It's an antiparasitic.
It's an antiparasitic. It's an antibiotic. It is a very, very efficacious plant for so many different things. And it seems to me that the bee cappy is more of a female spirit, while the Syrian rue is more of a male spirit. That's why bee cappy isn't going to do anything to a pregnant woman, whereas Syrian rue will cause an abortion if it's used by a pregnant woman. So don't ever use Syrian rue if you're pregnant. That's very, very dangerous. That shows me that it's more aggressive. And that's also why it's more effective as the primary MAOI to break down those enzymes before you drink the DMT brew. That makes complete sense, that it would be more aggressive because it's a male spirit. Iboga is also a male spirit, as opposed to the DMT containing plants, which are female spirits as well. I think you can always tell the spirit by the way it acts in the body. Pharmaceuticals, on the other hand, usually have demonic names attached to them, and you can kind of guess where I'm going with that. But yeah, there's an energy to everything that you put in your body.
Yes, Alyssa asked a great question. How can you tell whose research to trust these days? I'm convinced everyone lies. And I somewhat agree with you. I don't think that everyone lies, but it's more that nobody has it right. And I'm even speaking for myself. Like I can tell you what I know based on the information that I know. There's still, I'm sure about this, that there is a lot more information that still needs to come into the sphere. And when that information does come into the sphere, then analysis will start changing as a result of the new information. So it's not necessarily that everybody lies, but rather nobody really has nobody has a right. I mean, it's impossible to have it right. How can you have it completely and totally right when you're inside of it? Like if you were inside of this cup, right? How can you see the writings and the letters on the outside of the cup while you're still inside of the cup? Like you can really start to understand what the cup is, but you're not going to really see a full spectrum of it unless you're standing outside of it, which I was able to stand outside of it momentarily. But even that moment of standing outside of it gave me a much better understanding of what it is, but I still didn't spend enough time out there to really analyze it and really see every single line and every single little detail and stuff like that's on this cup. But then again, there are a lot of people that are full of shit, and they're purposely full of shit because they're trying to sell books and they hype things up. And this was one of my big gripes with the truth movement, is that there was so much hype just for the sake of hype. I mean, scaring the shit out of people for the sake of it, making them feel like they have to tune into this particular radio show, otherwise the freaking sky is going to fall down if they don't, etc., etc. And I see it all the time now, especially in a lot of the Christian sects, for example. Oh, they're opening portals to demons, and oh, demons are going to come and they're going to take over your body and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, it's like these fish out of water flopping around. It's like, get a fucking hold of yourself, man. What are you're afraid of demons? I mean, is this how weak your consciousness is? That this is what you're worried about, is demons are going to come over and hijack your body? What the fuck kind of shit is this? Man up. Sorry. I didn't mean to go off on that, but I mean, I see all these people like running around like scared, like, oh my God. Maybe it's really something NPCs are really scared of, though. Maybe because they don't have anything inside of them, they can be easily hijacked like that. Ooh, revelation there. And so that's why their concern is, oh, they're going to be hijacked by these demonic energies because there's nothing inside of them. And so anything can jump in. Right. So anything can jump in. I mean, I'm freaking organic consciousness. I'm raw consciousness. There is nothing that can hijack me. I can be fooled. I can be programmed in a certain way or false susceptible to a particular type of program. That's very, very possible. but I can't be hijacked, and there's nothing that you can that can take you over completely. So, you know, you were telling me some of the questions before air, which is the first time we've ever done this. Usually she just has all the questions and she's dumping them on me. But I don't know if we addressed this earlier or not, but somebody said something about baptism. Do you remember that? Did we go over this question?
Yes. No, we haven't gone over
it. Oh,
good,
yet. Good, because this is a great segue to that.
Okay. Cinnamon Silver said the talk about the pic of the baby sacrifice, and I think she's talking about the ancient Egyptian palette with Akhenaten holding his baby up in the tentacles raised. Makes me feel like a child of our time that has been christened and been sacrificed to the AI. Furthermore, when people choose to be baptized, it's further sacrificing ourselves. What do we do to avoid these contracts to the AI?
Okay, so here's the way I understand it. I was baptized too. I was baptized when I was like 3 months old, and the priest freaking dunked me in the fucking water and all this. And there was nothing I could do about it. There was no agreement that I made whatsoever. There was nothing. That was all my parents doing. So how can my parents make a contract on my behalf? I mean, we're talking about a soul level here. They can't. So regardless of what happens, you are in still complete control of your consciousness. So if you've been baptized, or if you've been circumcised, or, you know, any of this stuff that seems like it's some kind of offering to the AI, or it's a sacrifice to the AI, unless that consciousness is continuing on that thought process and continuing playing out that program, which it is the sacrificial lamb to the AI, et cetera, it has complete control to be able to break free of it. And all you have to do is just say, no, I'm not. Or if you have made a contract in the past, and you revoke that contract. Very simple, because you have the control over everything, and that's what the AI wants to keep you from understanding. And so you feel bound to a particular spiritual contract, but in essence, you just say, no, I'm not. You know, hey, okay, so I was baptized 10 years ago because I was a born-again Christian. Well, I'm throwing all that off, and that's it. And so that's, you, at that point, create a new, it's not even a contract. Like, the AI can't hold you to the contract. It's not going to say, well, you know, you did this contract, et cetera, et cetera. It can fool you into believing that you're contractually bound to it. That's it. It's all your consent 100% of the way. So don't feel like if you were baptized or anything like that, that you're bound. You're not. That's the beauty of organic consciousness, is we're the creators.
Right, exactly. We are only bound by what we believe we are. That's the main rule.
Omar just said that. Only bound by yourself to your own beliefs.
Yep.
You guys
nice.
are perfectly synced up. So awesome.
Yep. Let's see.
See, you also have to think about too, like, how far do these contracts go? So let's say I lived a life where I had absolutely no freaking idea what was going on, and I wasn't able to tap into any of this, and it was just completely just, you know, NPC style life where my organic consciousness was completely hijacked. So I make a contract with the AI back then. Does that contract still apply now? Fuck no, it doesn't apply. So you can do that regardless of whether it's 10 lives ago or in this particular life. It's all you.
Mm-hmm. You're actually in the driver's seat of this whole thing. Whatever's happening to you is only happening to you because you want it to on some level. I really am starting to think that if you're organic consciousness, then you have complete control of everything. And everything, even the things that seem bad, are the result of something that you need at that point in this incarnation. And it's simply a challenge to get out of it. Can you guys do another hour, please?
I said, you have to give us more topics here, because I've got a bunch of stuff in the email, I'm sure, but like I was looking through the email earlier, and there's a bunch of people that requested the guide, and some people that have just sent questions. And so I don't want to click on that and then start scrolling through, because then I'm going to I'm going to mark as seen
As
on the
read,
people that I
yeah.
still need to send the guide to.
Right.
So I don't want to do that. But I will formulate a little better plan for future broadcasts. We've always been right off the cuff though. Like we just decided we were doing the show with Billy, and then we decided afterwards, I'm like, I think we should just do a YouTube thing. Just, we're here, we're already in the studio, we're already ready to go. And we literally like 10 minutes later, boop, turn on the stream. So.
Right. Mandela effect.
Mandela effects. Okay. We can talk about that. Let me get a little bit of water first. Everybody's dumping in a bunch of questions now. Can you jot these down? Sheree's hiding her soda.
Oh, now it's not a secret anymore. Thanks.
You can drink soda. There's nothing wrong with drinking soda. That's
It's
what I realized. Like,
it's a Mexican soda.
we put all these constraints upon us, and this was one of the other things that was making me miserable, is that I was trying to constrain myself from everything that I enjoyed in this matrix. And again, it's about finding the balance. This is why I failed when I went through that whole thing with the Cappy, what I was talking about. I lost a ton of weight. I was vegetarian. I was all this stuff, and I failed because I wasn't balanced, because I threw everything off and I was completely ignoring my own, what I enjoy. And so it wasn't enjoyable. So, I mean, if you're at that level and it's enjoyable to you, then by all means go for it. But I like a big fat steak every once in a while, man, like a nice ribeye, like charred on the outside, rare on the inside. With some mashed potatoes and gravy. Yeah. All right, so Shawnish.
Okay.
Have either of you had any out-of-body experiences with the astrals, either purposefully or accidentally? With the astrals, out-of-body experiences with the astrals. I'm not sure what the context is in that, but I guess the astrals, if the context is encounters with other beings, I can't say that I have. Everything has always been focused and with an intention and on ayahuasca. I've never had any out-of-body experiences aside from that. And I've had experiences where I can travel out, but it's intention, like, okay, like I'm like focusing and going, okay, I need to go tap into my raw consciousness element. And I do it on the show all the time, but it's not the same as an ayahuasca experience or really heavy DMT, because really heavy DMT is being thrusted out and you are not out of control, but you are somewhat, the experience is more in control than you are. When I thrust myself out of the body, in a different type of experience, then I'm actually projecting myself and I'm doing it with intention. And so it's like pushing something up a hill where your muscles are actually pushing it as opposed to it being thrusted up the hill. There's like, that energy that's being exerted while this is happening. But I've never just like all of a sudden accidentally, I'm out of body and that's it. I know some people have though. So,
I've got
Mandela effect. Is that what we were going to get into?
Mandela effect.
Okay, so do me a favor, keep on checking the chat room because people are now really asking some awesome questions. So Mandela effect. The first time that I saw the Mandela effect happening in my consciousness was in 2009, late 2009. I want to say November, December. Maybe January of 2010, but it was with Sheree, and this building disappeared. And then these buildings cropped up in 2012, a bunch of hotels. And Frank came over, and he said that not Paula, this was a different girl that he was with at the time. She was a travel agent, and she was looking for a hotel around our place, but she couldn't find any. And I'm like, well, just come over here and spend the night here. It's no problem. So, but these hotels popped up out of nowhere, and we were talking to the girl at Denny's, and the girl said, I don't know where these hotels came from. They just popped up overnight one night, because there was a little Denny's in the parking lot, and the hotel's right behind it. And so we started noticing these anomalies. And if you go back to some of our old archives from 2010, you'll hear me asking a random amount of guests. I think I even asked David Icke this at one point. Have you ever noticed any timeline anomalies or buildings disappearing or reappearing, etc.? And most people were like, no, 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 that's ridiculous. That's crazy. That's this and that, et cetera, et cetera. And then the term Mandela effect came out. So it was really cool to be able to witness these before before it was in the consciousness of the general consciousness, and before there was even a term for it. And which to me, it makes it even that much more real. So Berenstain Bears versus Berenstain Bears, of course, the most famous. And I remember JD from Red Pill Report, he said, have you heard about this Berenstain Bear thing? And I'm like, no. And he told me about it, and I'm like, that's kind of silly. And
I didn't think it was silly right off the bat. I'm like, oh, that's not right.
right.
There's something wrong there.
Right. So
Yeah.
there was definitely a change there. And then we did some research, and we found 80scartoons.net, and we went to the Wayback Machine. And there was a point, I want to say in 2010. No, I'm sorry. In like 2003, 2002, where all of the episodes were listed as Berenstain Bears, and then it changed to Berenstain Bears. But the URL, even to this day, 80scartoons.net/Berenstein, I think it's Berenstein.html. It's still spelled as Berenstein, even though there was the changeover at that one particular time in the Wayback Machine. So we were like, wow, okay, now we're starting to get like physical proof of this stuff. And then we look up the trademark attorney. I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
Oh, I don't either.
No, but we look up the trademark attorney, and he's actually written physical books where he talks about being a trademark attorney. And he mentions in these physical books that were written that he trademarked Ninja Turtles, he trademarked Batman and Robin, he trademarked several of these cartoon characters, including Berenstain Bears. And we were like, holy crap. And we went to his website, and we looked it up on his website, and his website showed Berenstain Bears. And then he changed it shortly after that to say Berenstain, but we had the screenshots and we had everything still showing the Berenstain. And you would imagine the trademark attorney would understand how to spell a word that he trademarked, because spelling is very, very important in trademark law. So if he says he trademarked the Berenstain Bears, then you can take that to the bank. And then there were other websites, which were like trademark websites, which were featuring this attorney, and it was spelled Berenstain Bears over and over and over and over and over again. So that was like really, really interesting. And then we were watching the Forrest Gump thing. Mama said that life is like a box of chocolates. And Tom Hanks is appearing on like SNL or something like that. They've got a green screen behind him. He's got another actor next to him, and they're going through these scenes from his different films. And one of them was the Forrest Gump thing. And he specifically says, and you can see it because the Google has the caption, the closed caption on this particular clip. And the closed caption says, life is like a box of chocolates. Life is like a box of chocolates. So when Tom Hanks was repeating the scene, he actually said life is like a box of chocolates. But you go back to the original film, and obviously it's changed to life was like a box of chocolates, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So you know, there's another proof of this alternate timeline. Now, this is the one that gets really, really strange. Okay, Apollo 11, the moon landing. Tom Hanks, and I remember this because I used to write techno music, and in one of the techno songs, I sampled Tom Hanks from the film. Oh, you know, it's funny that a lot of these Mandela effects are revolving around Tom Hanks. Interesting. So I just made that connection. So in Apollo 11, he says, Houston, we have a problem. And I sampled it, and I would use that sample a lot in my music. And this was back in like 1999, 2000, and that was it. So then it changed to Houston, we've had a problem. And then it changed back to Houston, we have a problem. And you can go, I don't know if it's still up, but we went to the YouTube video, and it says, Houston, we've had a problem. And all these people are commenting and saying, hey, I remember it being Houston, we have a problem. And all of these people were commenting, And then you go to the video, and the video says, Houston, we have a problem. So now you've got comments of people who are hearing Houston, we've had a problem. They're recognizing that it used to be we have a problem. And then the video is now playing, we have a problem. So I said, let's clear this up. Let's go to the original tapes. So we go to the original tapes. The original tapes where they used to say, Houston, we have a problem, now say, Houston, we've had a problem. So now the original tapes changed, and the movie actually says, Houston, we have a problem. The original tapes say, Houston, we've had a problem. So we're watching Mandela effects now changing back and forth, which that went down the rabbit hole even deeper. And then there was a story about this guy who was arrested for using a fake passport, and he was flying around, and he swore he was from this country that doesn't exist. It's where Andorra is right now, in between Spain and France. And this was a story from like the 60s or 50s or something like that. And they held him, and they were trying to figure out, because the passport looked legit, everything looked legit. He swore he was from this country, but this country never existed. And then the guy disappeared like 3 days later while he was in custody. So we hear the story and we're like, wow, this is actually pretty interesting. And then that made me think of this other story where this couple was driving through, I want to say in London, and they came across this bed and breakfast. And this bed and breakfast was like from the 1800s. And they were like, wow, look at this recreation. It's so beautiful. And they started snapping photos in this old bed and breakfast. And like the whole town was like, late 18, rustic. And they were like, wow, I can't believe this town exists. And they're driving back on their honeymoon, and they're like, let's go stop at that hotel again. And the hotel is gone, nowhere to be found. But it did exist back in the 1800s. And all the film that they had taken was all blank from their initial visit to this place. So they talk about these time slips where people are slipping back in time now. And that started adding to the puzzle. And then there was, Chick-fil-A's logo and all these different things, Kit Kat. There was a few that I think are not correct, like Sex and the City versus Sex in the City. I always remember it being Sex and
it's always
the
been
City,
Sex and the City,
because it was a column. She was a columnist in this series, and I never really watched the series, but my girlfriend at the time, and I think everybody's girlfriend at the time, watched Sex and the City. So I remember, because her column was called Sex and the City. So I was like, no, that's one that people just remember differently. And then the Luke, I am your father, of course, which doesn't exist in this timeline anymore. And then you have James Earl Jones saying, when I first came across the line, Luke, I am your father, I thought, he must be lying. How are they going to play this plot lie out? And then he repeats it again in another interview. Luke, I am your father. I am your father. And and so James Earl Jones, remember voicing it as Luke, I am your father. And it turned into No, I am your father. And the one that got me, here's the one that got me the most, was when the new Star Wars came out. Sheree's never seen Star Wars before. So we sat down and we watched all the Star Wars, all 6 of them. And it was just fine. We watched it, and then the new one came out and we watched it, and that was that. And the new one, I remember C-3PO having the red arm, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. I wonder what happened with his red arm. And that was that. So we turn on Star Wars again a couple of weeks later, and I'm watching A New Hope, and C-3PO comes walking out and he has a silver leg. And I'm like, okay, this is insanity here, because we just watched this exact film a couple of weeks ago. There was no silver leg. My entire life, I had a bet set with Star Wars on it, and it had C-3PO while I was a kid, and he had 2 gold legs. And I found this very bet set out there, and he still has 2 gold legs on this bet set. And then we start looking at the toys, and the toys have a silver leg now. And we're like, okay, so it's not just a trick of the camera. It's not just any of that. This is actually, like, he was represented with a silver leg in A New Hope, which has never been the case. Star Wars people are freaking hardcore when it comes to Star Wars. They would not let something like that slide without a huge debate as to what happened to C-3PO's leg. And Nobody's talked about his silver leg. There's no lore behind how he got his silver leg, nothing like that. So, that was another thing. And then they interviewed the guy who played C3PO, and the guy was like, yeah, no, he's always had a silver leg. And that was that. But then they interviewed the photographer who actually took the promo shots of A New Hope. And the photographer said, no, he never had a silver leg. And I think it's like Mandela Effect C3PO photographer interview or something like that, which will get you the article. And he's like, no, he never had a silver leg. If he had a silver leg, I would have adjusted my lights according to that silver leg. But C3PO never had a silver leg. So now we have two different people who were involved in the making of this thing who have two distinct different memories. And then you have to ask yourself, two NPCs versus organic consciousness. Could it be that the NPCs, they don't actually remember C3PO having a silver leg? So let's just say the actor was an NPC, for example, and the photographer was not. So the actor says, no, he's always had a silver leg, not because he remembers him having a silver leg, but rather because his program is saying, no, he's always had a silver leg because he's an NPC, and that's that. But the organic consciousness, the photographer is like, no, I remember this. I remember him distinctively not having a silver leg, both gold legs. Doesn't make any sense. Why make one silver? Why go through all that and then make all the toys silver and all for absolutely no reason and not say anything about it in all 6 films as to why he has a silver leg? Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So that was a big one. And man, the rabbit hole just goes on and on and on and on and on when it comes to Mandela effects. So again, what we've talked about before is the merger of timelines on top of one another, and the AI having to delete certain timelines because it's merging on top of each other. At first, the obvious thing is to go to CERN and say, okay, well, CERN is doing something with the time stream, which is causing things to change. And my first reaction to the Mandela effect was, okay, they must have harnessed time travel, and time travelers are going back to a certain place to change an event. We're not really sure what that event is that they're changed in the past, but we're seeing the echoes and the remnants of it. So C3PO has a silver leg, for example, which wasn't what they went back and changed, because that's the first thing that people ask is, why would they go all the way back in time and change Berenstain to Berenstain? What are they, just trolling No, that's a remnant. That's the wave of whatever was changed. But then I start thinking of AI merging timelines on top of each other. I think that's a more logical explanation for what the Mandela effect is all about. Man, but it's remarkable, and it's remarkable in the sense that so many people are seeing it and so many people are noticing it. But then again, it's very important to not jump at every single thing that you think is a Mandela effect, because then it does a disservice when you're trying to actually show somebody the actual Mandela effect. There was this one obscure Saturday Night Live with Rob Schneider, and they were in a Greek restaurant, and the whole joke behind it was, oh, you like the sauce, huh? The sauce is very good, huh? I get you more sauce. And I remember that because I grew up in a Greek family. And so that was like the big joke, like, oh, I get you more sauce. And the Greek restaurant down the street from us had on the back of their shirts, he likes the sauce. So then it changed, because I was looking for that clip, because it'd been years since I've seen it, and we were making Greek food or something like that. And I said, hey, Sheree, have you ever seen this SNL? Because I kept telling her, oh, you like the sauce, huh? The sauce is very good, huh? And she didn't get it. And so I'm like, oh, let me show you the clip. So we go and we find the clip, and now he's like, you like the juice. The juice is very good. And it's like, what the hell? When you make a gyro, you put the tzatziki on there. It's the white sauce. That's what he asked for initially, was more white sauce for the gyro. But instead they bring him more of the lemon juice that goes on the gyro. And they're like, oh, you like the juice, huh? So I'm speaking to a couple of developers at work, and it's one guy that we were looking to hire. So I've never talked to this guy before, didn't know him, none of that. So we're sitting there talking, and then Mandela effect comes up. And obviously, a bunch of computer programmers are going to start talking about Mandela effect. So I said, there's this obscure Mandela effect, and I don't know. I've never seen anybody talk about it. And I said, do you remember that Saturday Night Live clip where they're in the Greek restaurant and it's Rob Schneider and et cetera, and he steps in immediately. He goes, oh yeah, of course. You like the sauce? I go, yeah, you like the sauce. He just came out and just said it just like that. And I said, it doesn't exist anymore. It's like, what do you mean it doesn't exist? And I pulled up the clip and I play it. And he's like, well, maybe they weren't happy with the original one and they redid it later in a different time, at a different time or something like that. And I go, no, it's always been you like the sauce. He remembered it just like that. You like the sauce. I found a YouTube video where there's this guy just kind of mocking, and it's just him with the camera in front of him. And he's like, oh, you like the sauce, huh? And this YouTube video was posted in like 2008. Mm-hmm. And it's still on YouTube to this day. So that was really interesting to see that one. And that, again, confirmed to me there's something going on here.
Blair mentioned Mongolia. Like Mongolia, whenever I remember Mongolia being like a very, very, very small country that was mostly taken over, I think, by the Russians or the Chinese way, way back. In ancient history, and like barely existed, and now it's huge. It takes up this huge portion of Northeast Asia, and it's thriving. It's very interesting how that happens. Very interesting.
I've never been one for geography, but I do know that there was a very strange one where people remember New Zealand being a distinct landmass on the left side of Australia. Right. And other people remember New Zealand, like you've got Australia here, you've got New Zealand down here. This is the way it is on the regular map right now. People remember New Zealand being up to the northeast of Australia instead of to the southeast of Australia. But some people remember a landmass to the left of Australia. Now, it's important to note that to the left of Australia on a lot of globes, they put a topography map, which shows you different elevations and what the different colors represent as far as elevations and things like that. So some people have gotten a topography map confused with a landmass existing on the left side of Australia. And so there was one from a TV show where they were showing a globe, and they were showing the topography map and saying, oh, there's proof that there was a landmass there. But no, it was a topography map. However, in Dazed and Confused, there's a scene where she's twirling a globe, and you can see a distinct landmass, which looks very, very different from this topography map that they were showing. And you pause it, and you can see this landmass right there to the left-hand side of Australia. And there was a show that we did with a researcher who was researching Atlantis, and he said that they just did some satellite imaging, and he believes that Atlantis is on the left side of Australia going all the way up to like Thailand and the Philippines and things like that. But he specifically pointed out that there was a sunken continent, small continent, kind of like Australia, and it's ancient, and it's right there next to Australia. We weren't even doing Mandela effect stuff. And he showed us the pictures of these satellite images of this little landmass to the left side of Australia. Why are so many people remembering this landmass to the left side of Australia if this is an ancient sunken continent from way back? I mean, I think he dated it like 10,000 BC or something like that. So I found that really interesting, and I jumped up immediately at that point and I said, oh, wait a minute. Have you heard about the Mandela effect? No, I haven't. Okay, well, let me send you down the rabbit hole here. And we started. It was actually very interesting to have an independent researcher come out and say there was a landmass here at some point. Interesting.
Yes,
I think I've bored Sheree.
No, you haven't bored me.
Talked too much.
No, I'm looking for these questions. Andrew said, stars, holograms, what's outside this construct?
Outside is the real world. The way that I understand this construct is you've got the ball, let's just call it a ball, but actually I think it's more like a flat plane with a dome over it. And this is where reality exists inside, kind of like a holodome, or holodeck. And it's funny because in the virtual reality realm, as soon as you plug yourself in, you're inside of a holodeck. Then reality manifests itself there. You know that white place that's like the dome, and it's flat, and it's just like you're there until the thing loads. So it's so funny. Like, this VR technology is so enlightening. So within this dome is the stars, is what we see up in the sky, the projection, et cetera, is this landmass here, all the way to the point where we can get to the edge of it. But you look up at the stars, and the stars don't actually exist millions of light years away. They are projections right up on this dome. And I don't know how far away this dome is, but I suspect that it's not nearly as far as what we have believed it to be. And it has a very, very distinct influence over us here via astrology and different turning of the tides and et cetera, et cetera. So outside is where the real world is. Or this entire dome itself could be a projection, and it just could be fed into our consciousness. And so there's different layers of this reality. So you go into the virtual reality realm, as I said, you're inside of this dome again. And then the room that you're in the virtual reality realms begins to manifest itself as the computer is loading it. But that room doesn't actually exist. The dome. It only exists within the mind of the observer, within the person that's wearing the goggles. So just because we are inside of a dome doesn't mean that the dome actually exists. Get one of these VR headsets. Like, if you have a smartphone that's compatible iPhones, Samsung, Galaxy, whatever, pick one up. Google Cardboard. I think it's like $10, and you can experience this for yourself. And again, it's like going into this technology. If you don't understand what this technology is, then yeah, this technology can be used for nefarious purposes. But if you go in and understand what this technology is, and you're using it for that purpose, to feel that immersion, to feel that disconnection from this environment, to understand how they're manifesting things at the infancy stage of this technology within the VR realm, it gives you insight into how this reality is also manifested in this VR realm.
Definitely. AI Cap'n said, have you guys ever met other humans on Aya? Not the people in the same room, but elsewhere.
I don't think I have.
I don't think I have either. No.
I used to speculate that the beings that we would encounter were also beings in another realm, which were also having a psychedelic experience.
Right, I've contemplated that.
Yeah, so we were appearing to them as DMT elves, and they were appearing to us as DMT elves, for example.
They're like, oh my God, I met humans. They're so weird. They're really messed up.
But I have seen, I've seen Frank in the DMT realm before, but Frank wasn't aware of me when I saw him in the DMT realm. And I don't want to go into that story, but I have been able to project and actually view astral bodies, but it's not in the way of being able to interact with those astral bodies. With them being conscious of the interaction and so on and so forth. I've gone in and cleared people if their astral bodies before in the DMT realm. So yes, I have seen other humans, but not in the sense of being able to interact like we're interacting right now.
All right, we have 10 questions left. Can we talk about the feeling of godhood? This is from Dakota. Can we talk about the feeling of godhood on an ayahuasca trip? I felt this at the end of my trip, and I want to know if I'm the only one. No, you're not. Absolutely not. I mean, every meaningful ayahuasca experience I've ever had the highlight of it has been you're in complete control of all of this. As organic consciousness, you are a creator. And so you have the right to take complete control over this journey of reality. And it's been the most meaningful. I don't know, Chris. I don't know if you want to touch upon that.
Can you repeat the question?
Can you talk about the feeling of godhood on an ayahuasca trip? She felt this at the end of her last trip, and she wants to know if she's the only one.
No, that's who we are.
Mhm.
We're divine. That's the whole point. But don't let the divinity get to your head,
Right.
because then you start to develop a psychedelic ego.
Mhm.
Then that's the Yahweh virus. That's the egoic, I am God, etc., etc. Now, see, divinity is feeling.
Mhm.
Divinity is compassion and intuition and love for other beings. So when you see somebody suffering and you take care of them and help them from their suffering, you're acting divine.
Mhm.
Likewise, though, it's also knowing when to walk away. So you see somebody struggling and you can give them a hand out, but sometimes divinity needs to walk away. Allow them to stand up and pick themselves up, because it's through picking themselves up that they strengthen themselves. So you stepping in and giving them a hand out, then it prevents them from being able to learn that lesson to pick themselves up. So divinity is also about being able to, and this was something that took me a long time to really wrap my head around. Divinity is also the understanding of when to show compassion, how to show compassion, and what compassion truly is. Because compassion doesn't necessarily mean going out there and helping everybody under the sun, because sometimes the best help you can give somebody is to walk away and let them pick themselves back up. So think
Right.
about that.
Right.
It's a very, very, very important thing, and one that's very, very difficult for a lot of people. I mean, if it was up to me, everybody would be taken care of.
Mhm.
Simple, because that's what I'd like to see. Everybody having an abundance of everything. But then what are people learning if that happens?
Right.
So
Exactly. There beyond the veil, there is a moon thing going on. And I think what JC is talking about is the supermoon effect that we're having tonight. It is a full moon. We are having a supermoon. So are you still against
oh, tonight's a
traveling?
supermoon?
Are you still
Oh,
against traveling on such events, or do I misunderstand
I don't
you?
like the moon.
I don't like the moon
I'm
either.
like a vampire when it comes to the moon. I'm like,
More like a werewolf, actually.
yeah.
Yeah. Bristles
We
on back
drank
of your
on a
neck.
supermoon a couple years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like, it was like drinking inside of a Walmart where you have all these fluorescent lights just pounding on you,
Yeah.
and the energy from the moon was just like whoa, whoa, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
and I was covering my eyes going, oh, it was intense as hell, don't get me wrong, it was
Yeah, it
really
really was
intense,
intense. Yeah.
but it was chaotic. It
Yeah.
was too chaotic to bring anything positive out of the experience. It was a fun
Right.
experience, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
It was
I mean,
good,
do it.
but
There's nothing, I mean, it's not going to hurt you,
yeah.
but you might find it to be a little more chaotic and bumpy. I used to go to Six Flags a lot, and there was the steel roller coasters that were really smooth and, you know, really intense and fun. And then you have the old school wooden roller coasters
The
where
Texas
you're just like,
Giant.
oh, and you're banging around and your head's banging up against the seats and everything like that, and you're holding
Uh-huh.
on and like, ah. And so that's the same as drinking ayahuasca during a full moon to me.
Yeah.
It's especially a super moon. It's like chaotic, bouncing around, you're hitting your head
Mhm.
everywhere and all that. But it is intense as hell.
Mhm.
But it's not necessarily as fun as one of the steel roller coasters. And the steel roller coasters take you for loops and do all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where wooden roller coasters can't.
Couldn't. No.
I like to drink on new moons.
Me
That's my
too.
preferred
Yeah.
time. And you
Sean,
can see the stars better too.
yeah,
Well,
you
there's
can.
something about the stars that is very calming and home feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason the stars are home feeling is not necessarily because we came from the stars, but rather we came in from the stars. Star
Right.
seeds didn't come from the stars, they came in from the
Through
stars.
the stars.
Yes.
Yeah. Shawnish Coolbean said, have either of you ever had any out-of-body experiences with
We already asked. We already went.
Oh, okay.
that one.
Shekinah Mystery said, what does ISIS say about the AI on DMT trips? You know, ISIS hasn't spoken.
ISIS has become part of our
Yeah,
consciousness now.
it's part of me. It's part of, you know, who I am.
ISIS is inside now.
Yeah, there's no reason to
There's no
ask.
external.
Yeah.
Isis is the divine feminine of our consciousness.
Right.
And once that is activated, then she no longer exists as an external being. She exists within you. So that's the whole part of raw consciousness. That was the aha moment of the raw consciousness. That was the development of that particular phrase, because it started out raw consciousness, RAW, void of all the AI programs. But in order to get to the raw consciousness element, you have to ultimately become the raw, which is all of the gods and goddesses activated together within your own consciousness. Then you become the raw. Then these gods and goddesses no longer exist outside. They exist inside.
Right, right. And Krobi-Wan Kenobi said, is there a way to use Aya to heal oneself from physical diseases? Absolutely. I would refer you to Dr. Edie Frexka. If you look up ayahuasca for treatment of diseases of Western civilization, there's an article that he wrote about on it, and it basically lays out what exactly it does to heal physical diseases and like actually get rid of them. Presto One said, how are we to act in your paradigm? How do we conduct ourselves righteously? Well, it's not my paradigm or Chris's paradigm. I think we all each have our own paradigm.
It's your journey.
It's your journey. Yeah.
That's the ultimate message. Like somebody wrote me an email the other day and they're like, what do you think? You're some kind of messiah. You're just
right.
Gonna,
That's what I was thinking too. I was like,
yeah.
what?
And then they were pointing at my e-cigarette and they're like, you can't even quit smoking. And I'm like, what the fuck? Are you not paying attention to anything I'm saying? I'm not here to save anybody.
No.
I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, how to walk, or anything like that. I'm here to share my experience and tell you what's worked for me to bring me to this point. And the savior is in yourself. You have to save yourself. Nobody can save you. I mean, you're in like this freaking huge pit that nobody can reach down to grab you and pull you out of. You have to use your wings and fly out of it. But the whole time you are not aware of your wings. But once you become aware that you have wings, then you can just fly out and you're like, oh, well, crap, why didn't I do this sooner?
Right.
So, yeah, there's no paradigm. There is just being. There is the raw consciousness element inside of us, and whatever your raw consciousness is to you, tap into that, but continue to ask yourself, is the level of consciousness that you're tapping into the actual raw consciousness, or is it tainted and diluted with AI programming?
Right.
And if it is, then reevaluate where you are. And I'm constantly evaluating that about myself. Like, is this the bottom level? No, it's not. There's still more. There's still more unprogramming. There's still more breaking down. But what am I going to do? Sit here and meditate on a rock for 50 years? And then when I'm freaking 90 years old, then I'll do like a 10-minute podcast and go, here's what I've discovered in 50 years. No, I'm going to take you all on the journey with me. And we'll learn from each other. And like I said before, just in the past few months, between the questions and the comments and the back and forth with everybody and everybody sharing their experiences, I've come to more understanding in this short amount of time than I have in all of the time of me doing ayahuasca. It's been way more powerful being here with each and every one of you than any of the ayahuasca experiences I've had. And that is a huge, huge, huge statement. So thank you eternally from the bottom of my raw consciousness to each and every one of you.
Definitely. Viviana said, so is there a God outside the construct, or are we the gods? Did we create ourselves?
I don't know.
That's
a question for another. That's a question for after we escape.
Yeah, after we get
construct.
out of here.
And then you have to ask yourself, like, what is God? And is God necessarily like, okay, so we're creating AI right now in the physical. So we are gods of the AI. We created the AI. We automatically assume that God is going to be more technologically advanced, way more superior to us in our thought processes and understandings, et cetera, et cetera. But we're creating AI to be way faster, way stronger, live way longer, compute very complex mathematical equations much, much faster than we can. So why would we assume that a God that created us, if we were created by a God, would be more advanced than us? Wouldn't we be created to be more advanced than what it is, the same way that we're creating AI to be more advanced than we are and fill in gaps that we're not able to accomplish with our human form, so we're relying on machines to do it for us? Think about that, and it kind of changes the whole idea of what God can actually be.
Absolutely. Shawnish, this is the last question that I have written. Shawnish said, do you guys think the astral plane is actually AI free, or is there an AI construct there as well? I think we've already answered this question, but just to recap it, even the places that you go on ayahuasca and DMT are part of the AI construct, unfortunately. You can't get out of this matrix without doing other things first. There's a process that we're still even trying to figure out to get out of here, but you can gain a lot of insight about the construct from these other states of being.
Aw. Jackie said, Chris and Sheree, your live shows for me a live integration experience. So important
Aww.
for healing. Thanks to both of you for your perspective and openness.
Well, it's been
Oh,
important.
thank you. We
for
love you.
us too.
It's
so,
yeah, it's amazing. Like
yeah.
I get really emotionally charged when I do these broadcasts and I'm here inside of the energy that we're all creating. And it's the same emotional level of the vibratory level of really thinking about what happened and how we got here to this place of being trapped inside of this matrix. Like it's